my first film fan, whatever you may be and however you may be watching, thank you so much for giving us this little bit of your time. All 15 films or 16 films are now out. The Snyderverse, the DCEU, whatever you want to call it, it is now all out there for us to see, to assimilate, to critique. It has washed over us. We are now steeped in everything that they were trying to do with the DCEU. So now we're going to take this opportunity to break away from kind of the standard review stuff that we've been doing for the last little bit, and we're going to break down the entire DCEU because I feel like it's a good conversation to have. And here with me, of course, definitely will be on the side of the DCEU, the Snyderverse defender, our good friend, American Werewolf in New Jersey. What's going on, brother?
What it is, everybody. I'm here ready to talk some DC, and let's get it going. Boogie woogie.
And one person I know will be on his side is the Shape the Lone Star State. My man Tex, what's up, brother?
Well, I think you can say Werewolf and I have formed a pseudo Justice League, if you will, against you non-believers of how glorious some of these movies are. And if there's even a 1% chance that you don't like these movies, Frank, we're going to have to take you out.
I like some of them. I thought a lot. Look, I've already put my vote into the chat, and if you're watching on YouTube, go put your vote in the chat. What did you think of the DCEU overall? Was it great? Was it pretty good? Was it okay but hit or miss, or was it straight poop? I think it was hit or miss. There were some movies that were very, very good. There were some moments that were very good. There were some that just were not good at all. And Jeremy, I think is probably going to be mostly on my side. I think he's going to be very objective about this. My head or life mate, Jeremy. What's up, brother?
Well, I think when you said breakdown of the DCEU, I think breakdown's a good term. I'm definitely going to be on the fence about this. I wish you would have led with me because I'm like, wait, why is he leading with obviously the two of them being the true believers, I guess, as Tex is going to put it. And I'm like, why am I last? I'm like, I'm not against it. I'm kind of just, yeah, there were good moments, there were bad moments, but I didn't hate it. So I guess
it's because you won't share your food, man.
I know. I was gonna say, if you're wondering why I'm cosplaying as my best Batman, I am the night. I am in the darkness. No one probably wants to see me eat dinner, so it's not that kind of channel. But go elsewhere for that.
It will give me an opportunity to put ASMR in the tags for YouTube. Maybe that'll help draw.
I mean, I could put. I could put it closer.
If he shows his.
If I hear you chewing.
Yeah.
If I hear you chewing, I will find you. Just know that ahead of time. That is.
All right.
Disgusting. So, just saying.
And then me, I think like Jeremy, look, there were some things about the DCEU, about the Snyderverse that I really liked. There were some things like Blue Beetle. It's like a lot of people didn't really like Blue Beetle. I thought that was a good movie. It wasn't great, but it was a decent movie. Wonder Woman 84, I liked more than a lot of people. It wasn't great, but it was still, I thought, a fun movie. There were some things that were good and bad about it, but I mean, one of the big questions is where did the true failures happen? Was it really in the filmmaking, or was it just in the offices? Was it in the executive, the production offices, where a lot of things went wrong? And that's kind of where it is. But I'll break that down later. But right now, let's start with one of the easy things to break down. And that's the casting. I mean. Obviously, Gal Gadot was a bit of a stretch for some people. She wasn't at that point quite proven. I think the biggest thing she had been in is she was like a very quiet side role in a couple of Fast and Furious movies. Ezra Miller at the time an up and coming and we'll get to all his other stuff in a minute. But at the time, an up and coming actor had done a lot of dramatic stuff that had gotten him a lot of critical acclaim, but still relatively unknown. Ray Fisher, who had done some stuff kind of unknown, and then you throw in there Henry Cavill as Superman, who had a couple of really big roles, but it's a tough role to fill because so many people go back to like Christopher Reeve. It's one of those roles that if you don't look the part and carry yourself in the part, you're going to get kind of eaten up. And then of course Ben Affleck, which as a lot of you guys will probably remember, better Batman than Affleck was hashtagging on Twitter for 6 months after they announced his casting. The cast again, they went with a couple of big names to go with a couple of relative up and comers, not unknowns, but up and comers. I'll go to you first, Jeremy. The casting is very, very important for something like this. Did you think they nailed the casting, or is there somebody in here you think could have been replaced?
Well, hilariously, making J. Jonah Jameson Commissioner Gordon is always a win. let's not forget that he put down the pictures of Spider-Man and he just, wanted Batman to answer the call. I would say the casting is pretty spot on. I mean, we even just in that picture there alone, and also I think Jason Momoa is also a great fucking Aquaman. Like, I wouldn't screw with the dude. That's also one that not only with Superman, like you kind of have to nail that down because let's be honest, like it's Aquaman. You're kind of like, really, Aquaman? But I mean, I think the first thing I ever saw of Jason Momoa, he comes up with like a beer in his hand. He's like, "Hey, I'm Jason Momoa. I like to drink beers and throw tomahawks." Just fucking whips around, boom, throws it right in the thing. He's like, "Fuck yeah!" And I'm like, "He's Aquaman? Oh shit! Okay, you got me. That's all I needed to know." Like, and again, he's a big dude. I wouldn't screw them either. So I think just objectively looking at the casting, yeah, there's nothing really wrong with it. Like we all came around. I'm the prequels generation of Star Wars. Those movies are not great. It's come around now where we're like, oh, it really wasn't that bad. It's like, oh, you're just an actor. You're probably the right person for this role, but you're dealing with what kind of script you're getting, what kind of, like we said, there's other moving pieces that's not on screen that we're not, So yeah, you have to say goofy lines like "I don't like sand" and make that work. You know what I mean? We all love Hayden Christensen now, but I mean, I've always loved him, so don't even say I'm bandwagoning. I always thought those movies were great, but I think casting, again, I think they did pretty well. I was sold on Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot, and I ate my own words with Batfleck. I saw Daredevil. I saw Geely. Look, I'm just saying. I was like, I love you in the Skewniverse. I love you being goofy with Jay and Silent Bob. But I'm like, you're gonna be Batman. I'm coming off of a Christian Bale high. I'm like, you're gonna be Batman? What the fuck? I remember that night very fucking clearly. I rolled over in bed with who I was dating at the time, and I just went, "What?" She said that. I'm like, "What the fuck? No, you're gonna ruin." I was like, "We're going to bed." Nope. I was too mad. I went to bed angry. You made me go to bed angry, Batfleck. But you made me eat my words. So please don't come beat me up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I don't know. Tex, what do you think? I mean, the casting, like I said, very, very important. Do you think that DC, at the very minimum, nailed the casting?
Oh yeah, there are some of these castings within the DCEU world that I think are fantastic. Obviously, Affleck, he is my Batman. I've seen all the others. He probably will forever be my Batman. Cavill as Superman speaks for itself. But there's a few that I don't know if a lot of people are going to mention that I happen to love. One of my favorite characters in the entire DCU is from Suicide Squad in Boomerang, Jai Courtney. The way he played Boomerang in that film, he was funny, he was deadly, he was, when as they're going through that film, he's like the one that's trying to get away, sneaking beers in his coat. He's carrying a pink unicorn for no real reason whatsoever at all. One thing you can't forget about the Suicide Squad that they gave us was Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Perfect casting. I mean, Jesus, that I don't know if that was David Ayer, if whoever picked her, bravo. And on a more controversial level, I like Jared Leto Joker. I know a lot of people don't. I don't think he had enough time. But the one thing that really redeemed him for me was his few moments at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, where he is talking to Batman without the face tattoos, and you just get to see how creepy of a Joker he was. Oh my God, I wanted a whole movie of him versus Batman. It could have been just dialogue, and I would have been happy. But I can't remember the woman's name, but the woman who played Amanda Waller from How to Get Away with Murder,
Viola Davis.
Viola Davis. Yeah. She nailed the character. I mean, exactly what Amanda Waller is supposed to be. There's so many more I could go on, but I don't want to take them all. So, that's just a few that I really like. So,
I don't know. Werewolf, what about you? Again, casting very, very important for a franchise like this. Do you think they did well, or is there something you'd have done differently?
The casting was good if we're talking about the main components, like the Justice League characters. I had never seen Gal Gadot before. And so they had a couple of people like her and Momoa that aren't thespians. I mean, it's not Denzel Washington or, anything like that. But the roles that they were cast for were like these muted sort of stoic characters. So they didn't have to do much. And so you could trade on that limited ability with the look. I mean, Gal Gadot was like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen since like Monica Bellucci.
Oh yeah.
And I saw her in BBS. I'm like, who the fuck is that? I'm like, holy shit, and then you get a couple of minutes of Momoa here and there. Ezra Miller, I didn't think very much about. I didn't think much of Affleck's casting until I saw him, and I was wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong. Cavill for me is my Superman. I mean, I grew up, I'm going to be 56 this year. I grew up watching Christopher Reeve, and, like every 9-year-old, I was a fanatic. But looking at them now, I'm not 9 years old anymore. I'm like, wow, this is really fucking stiff. I mean, he's good and all, but it was good for the time. I think Cavill's performance is a lot better, because it got dirtied up. But what ended up happening was outside of that, things I liked Ayer Suicide Squad. There's always the Ayer controversy that, he really didn't even release his movie. They made him make an action comedy, which is what we were talking about before we went on. But I agree with those castings, right there. That was fine. But after that, things started to fall off. When Snyder just, sort of left, an abandoned ship. And then things started to take this skewered sort of direction. And everything, you started to get into the blue beat. And like I was just saying, with everything started to become action comedies. You started to move away from the original version that I appreciated from like Man of Steel. I mean, I thought Michael Sheen, the guy who played General Zod. Michael Shannon. I thought he was great. Russell Crowe. Yes. You had serious, just hardcore, smash mouth acting and performances like you always get with Zack Snyder, 300, Watchmen, Dawn of the Dead, these sorts of things. Once Snyder sort of flew the coop, it just became a rudderless ship. And my appreciation for it, although I've watched some here and some there, I saw the last Aquaman movie. It was okay. Even with James Wan, they never were able to correct course because they seemed to constantly want to just make it lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And that isn't what drew people in the first place. But yeah, that original core group, tight. That original core group.
Yeah, I'm with you guys for the most part. I think mostly the casting was pretty good. The couple of home runs they hit, obviously Batman and Superman. Those are the ones you had to get right, and I think by and large they did. And like Jeremy, I was one of the people that was all over Twitter like, better Batman than Affleck, blah, blah, blah. I will forever be eating a plate of crow every day to make up for all the crow that I need to eat for that, because he ended up being a great Batman. It was part his acting, part the way that Snyder wanted to do the character. So that to me worked out really well, because I still wanted a darker Batman. And I think that's what he was trying to give us and what he would have tried to have given us had he stayed kind of in charge of the whole thing. But obviously, they gave us hints of the killing joke and Robin dying. So, I mean, going to that territory would have been really awesome. And I kind of hope that they still do at some point. But yeah, those were the two that you had to nail. I think for the most part you did. Gal Gadot is the one that's interesting to me because a lot of people, even now, I heard John Campea talking about it the other day. He said that Gal Gadot, he doesn't think she can be a leading character like that. And I'm like, I actually liked her take on Wonder Woman. Now, I think part of it was a lot of it, at least in her movies, was Patty Jenkins' vision. Because I think Patty Jenkins did very well kind of creating that world for her. But I actually liked her in the role. I thought she was a lot of fun. I mean, she's got to be gorgeous the way that Linda Carter was knockout gorgeous back in the late 70s and the 80s in the Wonder Woman TV show.
Yes.
That's a high bar. That's a high bar.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And, the Flash, like, I mean, again, this was pre-Ezra Miller losing his shit. But it's like, he had him and Amber Heard. We'll talk about both of them later. But, like, they both got this opportunity in DC because they had put some pretty good work out there. And somebody looked at them and said, okay, it's time that you stepped up to the big leagues and did something like this. And I look, say what you will about Ezra Miller. I've said a lot. I actually like him as the Flash. He fits the role pretty well. If I'm just being totally objective and putting all the other shit aside, he plays a good Barry Allen. He plays a good Flash. The one thing, I echo what Tech said. I mean, Jared Leto's Joker, I wasn't quite sure. All I know was he had the potential to be awesome, like maybe even better than the Joker that we got in the Dark Knight trilogy with Heath Ledger. But I wanted to see more. I looked at him in the role, that little bit of screen time that we actually got from him, and I was like, this is the kind of thing I want. I want super maniacal, crazy, insane Joker, kind of like what we got with Heath Ledger. No explanation as to where he comes from. None of that. Just let him be pure evil. And I thought that was going to be where Jared Leto was going to shine. And I'm really sad that we're not going to be able to see him as Joker anymore. The one big fail that they made casting-wise, and I have been saying this the moment they announced him, I was like, why? Jesse Eisenberg was not a good fucking Lex Luthor. I'm sorry, he doesn't have the presence. Now I put this up because there's a couple of things that I want to point out between these two characterizations of Lex Luthor. There is something intimidating about Gene Hackman's presence when he's trying to be an imposing figure. He's got a look about it. Now, obviously, different generations of humanity these two guys come from. Hackman is the guy that comes from old school. I mean, he's like what 90 something now. I mean, he's the guy. He was built differently. Einsberg, a more modern actor, kind of a we know him for stuff like Zombieland and things like that, The Social Network, things like that. They are not the same. It's like, I'm sorry, Jesse Eisenberg is not Gene Hackman. Now, if you look at all the iterations we've gotten on screen of Lex Luthor, we've gotten Hackman's, which is legendary. We got, and again, say what you want about Kevin Spacey.
I can say a couple things about Kevin Spacey. Well, he's scary, but yeah.
But he was I mean, that moment where he's like got Lois Lane and her kid trapped, and she was like, go ahead, come on, say it. And she goes, Superman's going to, he jumps in her face and goes, wrong! I was like, that was like a great scene. I was like, that's him trying to be pure evil. That worked out well. And even like Michael Rosenbaum was a better Lex
He's
Luthor
the best Lex Luthor. Rosenbaum is my favorite.
Jesse Eisenberg, he's like, what, he's 5'8", kind of scrawny. It's like, you can't just shave a guy's head and say, go play Lex Luthor. If that was the case, I'd have done it for half the price.
He was, for me, he worked because he was perfect for the time. In the time of all these riots and these, the Antifa era, and, you had all these skinny people just smashing, angry, whatever. He just seemed like the perfect one for the time. He reminded me of Remy Malik as the Bond villain from the last Time to Die. He's just a skinny little unlikable shitbag, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that, it was all about what he wanted. Hackman, nobody's Gene Hackman. So, that's that.
And that's true. It may be an unfair comparison, but the reality is they both played this role at some point in world history, so the comparison is always going to be made.
Yeah, I think he worked at the time.
To be fair, Eisenberg's Luthor is very similar to Leto's Joker. We didn't have time to see that character evolve. When we see him in Batman v Superman, we're literally seeing the beginnings of that character. He's still got the hair. He's just at the beginning of his road. Once we see the hair come off, he's in Arkham Asylum. That's whenever that character changes. Whenever he's got the long hair, he's on the basketball court shoving Jolly Ranchers in people's mouths. Yeah, that's weird. I don't like that either. I mean, I'm not a fan of that version. But that scene alone where you're seeing him getting the head shaved, you look in his eyes, you can see it. It's going from maniacal to I'm going to end this man no matter what it takes.
Yeah, the mask.
The mask is gone. It's like he shed his skin and became his ultimate form. And once again, much like Jared Leto Joker, we only got a small sample size. But at the end of Justice League, where we see him on the yacht with Deathstroke coming up to talk about forming a league of their own or whatever.
You blue balled me with Deathstroke. I'm so mad. I'm so mad about that.
That right there is Lex Luthor. He's sitting there in the power suit. He's got a boat full of gorgeous women. There's cool things to come. And there could have been, but I know. I think we got to.
Look what they took from
Right. I don't think we can fairly judge Eisenberg's Luthor based on the sample size. That's all I'm saying. So,
and maybe he would have gone on to surprise me. Maybe he would have.
I think
because I say he was a bad choice for Lex Luthor, and I consider myself a Jesse Eisenberg fan. I mean, look, we've already done. Well, we did the first Zombieland, right? Did we do the second one yet?
I think we did the
Yeah, we did the first one. Yeah,
yeah. Love him.
No, we did the first one.
I've loved him in a lot of movies that he's been in when he's kind of playing to character. I just don't know that he strikes an imposing figure the way that somebody like Michael Rosenbaum did in Smallville. All these other guys that played Lex Luthor. I don't think he can strike that kind of an imposing character because like Hackman says in the movie, I'm the best criminal mind of our time. Mm-hmm. He didn't take me as the best criminal mind of our time.
Well,
I can get
Hackman did.
We had 10 years. We had 10 years of Michael Rosenbaum's Luthor. You know what I'm saying? We had maybe 2 hours of Eisenberg. You can't really compare those two.
Yeah,
well, you had 2 hours.
Day, even
2 hours of him, like 2 minutes.
Comedic character.
Oh.
Right.
Just yelling at Miss Tasbacher the whole time. Miss Tasbacher, or he's yelling at Warren Beatty the whole time. I mean, it wasn't like he was like the Hackman from Unforgiven. I mean, we look at these things with like rose-colored glasses, decades later. Yeah. But I mean, Donner Superman they were action comedies. They were. Yeah. They were action comedies, and they played their roles comedically. It was the same thing.
Yeah, Van Edwards says the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie just felt too art house project for me.
We don't count that.
I'm not counting the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie.
Joker is not a DCEU movie.
Yeah. But
that's not counted in the 16.
And neither is the Batman that
the Robert Pattinson.
Twilight. Yeah. Robert Pattinson. Yeah.
No, that is not.
So I've actually said several times. I think the Joker movie of Joaquin Phoenix was a terrible comic book movie, but it was a great character study.
It was a good art movie, like you said.
Yeah. Did you ever see Falling Down with Michael Douglas? One of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
I've always called Joker Falling Down with face paint because it's kind of the same thing. It's like you've got this guy who's kind of on the verge of losing his shit. He's on the fence between sanity and insanity, and he has that moment where he gets pushed to one side. And both those characters are kind of in the same position. Now, obviously, it happens at the very beginning of the movie in Falling Down, where he has this moment where his head just kind of snaps. But whereas it happens, I think it's kind of like the moment in the subway station where it kind of happens to Joaquin Phoenix's character. But yeah, it's a character study more than it's a comic book movie. A great movie, don't get me wrong, but not a great comic book movie. It's certainly not part of the DCEU. I mean, they even said this is what do they call it? The Elseworlds? Is that what
Elseworlds?
Yeah, DC Elseworlds. Yeah.
Elseworlds.
But I mean, other than that, it's Harley Quinn, great casting. I mean, look, sometimes you just hit a home run and you just round the bases with a smile on your face. I mean, that was great. I think counted in the DCEU movies for some of the stats I'll give you guys later is that Birds of Prey, the Emancipation of blah 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 blah. The title way too long.
Something Harley Quinn.
Yeah, something Dark Side Harley Quinn. But that's included in there too. So some of the numbers I'll give you guys later. But let's move on now.
Yeah, that's at the bottom.
Yeah, let's move on now to kind of the overall story. Obviously, when the MCU was getting started, they introduced you at the end of the Avengers to Thanos being the big bad guy, and then everything builds up to that towards Endgame. Here, what they were starting to do was going to be Darkseid. So, we get Steppenwolf really is the only one we really get, and they were kind of leading into dealing with Darkseid. I'll go to you first, Werewolf. I mean, we didn't really get to flesh this story out very far at all, and I'm very disappointed because it looked like it was going to be interesting. But what do you think of the overall story arcs they were going to give us, going with Darkseid as their big bad for their universe?
Yeah, I'm still kind of heartbroken about the fact that we didn't get it. You were going to get the invasion of Themyscira by Granny Goodness. I mean, whoever thought that we would see Granny Goodness in live action? We were going to get Desaad versus Batman. Darkseid versus Superman. We were going to get the Legion of Doom. We were going to get the Riddler solving the anti-life equation. All these things, and they just it was great. Now, I mean, like when I first saw Whedon's Justice League. I was like, oh, this is kind of because it didn't really do much for me. And again,
it was a Marvel movie.
It was an action comedy. Yeah. It wasn't until 2021? So just 3 years ago that we got a chance to see the Snyder Cut and the full vision. And by then it was too late. You know, so it's like you're showing us this incredible 4-hour vision. I remember watching it that night. I had a couple of friends come over. We had been waiting for years, and we sat down and watched all 4 hours. And you're like, holy shit, you know, and then you just realize, well, you know, probably not gonna happen. I mean, I still hold out hope maybe at some point within the next 3 to 5, you know, maybe Netflix will license somehow and he'll get a chance to finish. But yeah, it was great. It was great. Who would have ever thought that we would have seen Darkseid like that? I mean, like DC has great animated universe. It has great animated universe films. So you're seeing Darkseid and, you know, Doomsday and, you know, all these different characters. But wow, who would have ever thought it would have played out like that? And just when they show you all the, well, not all the cards, but, you know, you get a hell of a look behind the curtain. You know, it's 5 years too late for them to do anything about it. It's disappointing. It's disappointing.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? Again, the idea of Darkseid I thought was absolutely fantastic. And at one point, I was, even when the movies weren't doing so well, I think creatively, I thought they were missing it for me. I was so really excited to see Darkseid. What do you think of what the story they were trying to give us?
Yeah, that was it. And you just Amber Heard, you just shit the bed. Like
That's the first Amber Heard line on this show tonight. There will be more, I'm sure.
Well, it was somebody had to do it, and I'm sure we're going to do this a few more times. I like the fact of you know, Steppenwolf, as I call him, Stepping Stone, because you know you have something that's worse like Darkseid. And I was like, yeah, Darkseid's kind of, you know, their Thanos. So I'm like, yeah, if we're going to build up to this, I'm okay with it. But I feel like, you know, we didn't see. I didn't see where it was going, and like Werewolf said, it's like, well, you show me what could have been, and it's already too damn late. Like, I was like, damn, that would have been really cool. That was actually a lot better. You kind of had, you know, kind of your Ultron and Thanos thing with like Steppenwolf and a Darkseid. I'm like, this is your big bad, and this is what you want to get to. But you just do a Justice League movie at me way too fast, and I was like, well, okay, calm down a little bit. I just wanted this to be done correctly, and this is the problem: is that it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. Everyone's just going to be pointing at him like, "Oh, look, you're just trying to be Marvel." I'm like, well, I mean, why wouldn't you? It worked, right? You know, that lead up to Thanos, up to Endgame, yeah, it worked. It was done out. It was, you know, laid out pretty beautifully. And if you don't, they're like, yeah, I'm like, so why not do that? Like, why not take a page out of their book and just, you know, build this up the correct way instead of just, you know, coming out with essentially your Avengers movie and then being like, okay, so here's your Thanos, and you'd be confused as hell. Like, but who's this guy? Like, where the hell did he come from? You know what I mean? I wish it had been more thought out. And I know you want to get to the finish line because, but like by that point, yeah, I think Marvel is already getting up there to Endgame, getting up to Infinity War. So, because that was what 2019, I think, was Infinity War. So,
like that,
yeah. So, and I want to say Batman vs Superman was like 2017, 16. Okay, yeah. So you're kind of fighting a losing war here, and that's just the shame of it. And again, I know I'm not blaming anybody who was on screen. It's like it's all the stuff behind the scenes that, again, we're trying to race to this finish line. That's you need to run the proper race. You don't just want to sprint and just, you know, in a game of life, you don't take a +2 and just get 2 steps ahead and then get to run to the finish line. Like, no. So I think the 4-hour cut, which I very willingly sat through, I thought was really cool. It gave more depth, more backstory to Themyscira. Gave us, you know, we saw, you know, the Lantern Corps. I was like, well, I hope we see that again. No, okay, never mind.
Well, Ryan Reynolds killed at the end of Deadpool too. You're like, no, we're done. We're not doing that.
I know. Well, not maybe not with Ryan Reynolds. I know. Not. Let's not go that direction. And we saw Martian Manhunter for about 3 seconds, and I was like, oh, well, that would have been cool too, right? Maybe we see the Lantern Corps again. We see him. Okay, we start. If that's the start of it, we start expanding this more. Then great. But I mean, you did kind of just throw your big bad out the window. I think it was like Bruce Wayne talking to Martian Manhunter out on his little balcony in the sunset or whatever. And I think, like you said, we said the best version. I mean, I didn't like Jared Leto's Joker, period. Like, but the best I ever saw of him was at the end of that scene where we saw the Nightmare Batman. We saw everybody coming together when Superman just straight snapped. And now you kind of have this, having to work together because we have a bigger fish to fry here. And I'm like, wow. Now see that dynamic. If you would have gone that direction with it, I'm like, it was there. I don't have the big money to talk in that kind of studio. So, I mean, maybe that's why, but I wish that's what we would have gotten.
Yeah. Tex, how about you? Story work out for you, Steppenwolf, the idea of Darkseid. Was that a good direction to go, or would you have something else?
Well, Darkseid is one of my favorite villains. If Warner Brothers had the sense to just write it out with Zack Snyder for just a little bit, and obviously, the tragedy of his daughter was the reason why he had to step away. So, thoughts for his family. But Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League is the best storytelling that we've ever gotten in a comic book series. That trilogy of films right there is a complete and entire story. You can throw out, I guess you technically have to keep Suicide Squad because of the Jared Leto Joker and Harley Quinn stuff, but you can kind of not pay attention to the rest of the Snyderverse because, like Werewolf alluded to earlier, that's when it got off the rails. But if you just watch those three properties back to back, it's a tremendous story. We get the introduction of Superman. It's a real world take on an alien god that could, just like Bruce Wayne says, end the entire human race. How do you think we're going to react to that as a whole? You see the redemption of him sacrificing himself at the end of Batman v Superman. Then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he comes back as the all-American Boy Scout, the boy in blue, whatever, even though he was wearing the black suit, which I thought looked pretty cool. But we get a complete story arc. And if Warner Brothers, if Walter Hamada, if so many of these executives had not panicked with, oh my God, bad reviews, we could have had something special. But instead, we got what we did. But story-wise, just from those alone, yeah, I loved it. Like I said, Man of Steel, BVS, the first Suicide Squad, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, some of my favorite comic book movies of all time. Perfect storytelling. I love them.
Yeah, I loved the idea of Darkseid because one of the things that the Snyderverse, the DCEU did that I thought was better than what Marvel was doing is, and I understand Marvel was trying to keep things a little on the lighter side. They were trying to keep things a little shade more family friendly. I wanted DC to go super fucking dark. I wanted to kill people. I wanted there to be a lot of ambiguity in what some of these characters did. I didn't want them to necessarily be straight up. I didn't want them to be anti-heroes, but I wanted them to have to kill people. I wanted them to have to get some blood on their hands. I thought that would have been the biggest difference, biggest positive difference between what they were doing and what Marvel was doing with the MCU. So I really thought that Darkseid could have been a better overall big-time comic book villain than Thanos. I was really eager to see that, especially after I saw the Snyder cut of Justice League. And, you see like the whole thing where like the camera pulls back, you see the big Omega sign like burn into the ground and all that. I was just like, that's badass. That's where I want this to go ultimately. Yeah. And I'm really disappointed that we didn't get a chance. I mean, because just look at this image right here. I'm like, that looks a little bit more menacing than Thanos. As menacing as Thanos was, I mean, he does beat the living shit out of Hulk in the beginning of Endgame. But as menacing as Thanos was, he does look a bit cartoonish. I mean, the edges were a little too straight. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was a big muscular dude. He had the gauntlet and all that. But this guy just looks like a demon straight out of Seventh Pit of Hell. And I really was like, I want to see more of this guy on screen, like right now. Like, take my money for the movie tickets. It's disappointing that the executives couldn't get their shit together and let the creatives be more creative, or couldn't give them the license that Marvel has, or that Disney has given Marvel, that Marvel had given people like their filmmakers, like Kevin Feige, to kind of run this whole thing. I think that's been one of the biggest differences between these two franchises, that the creators have been able to, they've kind of had carte blanche to do kind of whatever they want. Whereas there were so many pencil dick people at Warner Brothers that were like, we want this movie to go out now so that we can get it on our books for this year, and so I can make a bigger bonus. It's like, don't you want the movies to be good? Because that's a lot of the things. What movie was it specifically? I think it may have been Batman versus Superman. The filmmakers actually wanted to push it 6 more months so they could work on some stuff. And Walter Hamada was like, "No, I want this out before December because I want it on the books for on our profit margin for this year." And he even came out later and said, "I wanted it to make money so I get a bigger bonus for last year." And it's like, well, then you're not a creator. Stop hamstringing the creators and let them create. It's going to be better for you in the long run if you let these guys put out a great movie that people are going to
let them cook.
Talk about. Yeah,
let them cook. Right.
Snyder was on Rogan a couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, and he was talking about it, and he said they were nitpicking it really bad. So finally, he just came out and said, "This that you don't like." This was BVS. And he said, "Well, we don't like that Batman's fighting Superman." And he's like, "Well, that's the entire premise for the fucking movie."
Right. Did you read the title?
Like, how did this get greenlit in the first place? He's like, that's literally the film. I can't change that. So, I mean, I think when everything's said and done, and all the stories drop out, this will probably be one of the bigger production hell, narratives that we've seen, in the past, 25 years. And they really did tank their best chance because they were trying to compete with the MCU. You have something like Avengers where this giant, and I like Avengers. I love them. I have it right back here on Blu-ray. Don't misunderstand me. But, this giant hole opens in the sky and, these giant monsters come flying out. And by 30 minutes later, everybody's in a shawarma shop, eating shawarma, versus something like, Man of Steel BVS, which had a real, like Tex was saying, a real world implications as to what would happen if, something like that would take place. And I think that the execs didn't have it was just low resolution thinking. And they couldn't see, anything that wasn't cartoonish. And they tanked it. They tanked their own best chance for success. And it's been a shit show ever since.
You're putting too many fingers in the pie. And I know you want to taste, but like I said, let them cook. You'll get it. You'll get there and you'll realize that I can make a hell of a goddamn pie. Just let it happen.
Go away. Yeah.
And
all right, let me do
it. Before we go any further, I do want to say, I don't agree that you have to start off one superhero at a time. One at a time. How many iterations from Super Friends to Justice League Unlimited have we started with a full-fledged universe, which is what James Gunn is doing now, by the way. In this new Superman movie, there's like 9 DC heroes that we're going to see in it. So I don't want to hear the only way to do this is the Kevin Feige one hero at a time, 4 waves, and then an Avengers movie. I don't want to hear that. That's bullcrap. If Warner Brothers had let Zack Snyder and David Ayer alone flesh out the beginnings of this world and wrote it through and not played the catch-up game of, we have to play, catch up to Big Brother Marvel over there, it could have worked. How we get introduced to people like Aquaman, in BVS where we see the little, the computer images that Batman steals from Luthor. That was a great introduction. We get a little taste. We already know who these characters are. It's not like we need an origin story. Even the young people know who these characters are. Origin stories are overrated. Justice League could have worked as a start. It can still work as a start. If Warner Brothers said, "Hey, Tex, you've got the license to the DC universe. The first thing I'm doing is a Justice League movie. Full team, full-fledged world, no Batman year ones here. I want to see full-on comics because guess what? It works. If the X-Men movies alone prove this. We're starting a whole franchise with a full-fledged team and nobody asks any questions. But how come Justice League can't do that?
Well, the difference is that the X-Men have always been a team.
So has the Justice League. That's the whole point.
No, they haven't. Batman has an existence in Gotham City away from Superman. Superman has an existence in Metropolis.
Okay, but the Justice League still has.
I've been watching Justice League for 50 years on like Saturday morning cartoon.
Right.
Yeah, but at that point, but when we were watching him in the late 70s and early 80s, there was already 40 years of comic book and stuff like that and other television serials and stuff that we had the advantage of.
Are you telling me that if you would have just straight to the Avengers, and how many times did we complain about, like, God damn it, I got to do homework. I got to go watch this specific series at the spin-off of the main series of this movie.
I'm tired of watching Uncle Ben get shot, you know? Yeah.
If they would have started with the Avengers, I don't think the MCU would have worked.
That's what I'm saying.
I think part of why the Avengers worked is because you got – well, think about it this way. It's because comparing Batman and Superman where they are when they start the Snyderverse to where – Iron Man and some of these other characters are when they started the MCU is very different because Iron Man was not a big time character until Robert Downey Jr. jumped on screen.
Right. Iron Man was like a D-list tier superhero too.
Yeah. He was made big by the movies. Batman and Superman are the biggest comic book characters ever. That's
the thing I'll give.
MCU, DC, MC, any comic book character, Batman and Superman are the tops. So it's not like you're trying to take a second level character and make him into a big deal.
No. Yeah.
You have the best comic book character.
Here's how you do it then. It's actually pretty simple.
I agree with Tex because you do know who Batman and Superman are. Those are main characters. Yeah, like I understand his point to that. We're like, we don't need it. We know Batman's parents have died about 14,000 times. We've seen it 14,000 times. I'm like, yes, we know who Wonder Woman is. We probably know who Green Lantern is. You know, the Flash. But I'm just saying, if you watch this now 10, 15 years down the road or whatever the hell your parents, sorry. Oh, hell, maybe your parents don't even know anything about it and they want to watch it. Like your kids, your grandkids, and they're like, wait, so who is this? And then, like I said, now you got to do all this homework. Like, who's Batman? Who's Superman? Who are these? The further we get away from it, like I said, I don't want to keep doing homework because I missed out on 2 fucking Marvel shows. You know what I mean? Which I probably have no idea what's going on now just because I didn't want to watch Hawkeye or watch fucking Miss Marvel.
In all fairness, though, they tried to develop the first 3 phases of the MCU anyway, to where you could jump into any of these movies and not be lost. It's only since they started Phase 4 that they've gotten away from that, and I think it's hurt a whole lot.
Yeah,
but I would argue.
But even Marvel has gotten away from going into the origins again. They never showed us Uncle Ben getting killed. They never even showed us Tom Holland getting his powers. He pops in and he's already Spider-Man, essentially. They haven't gone back and done any of that stuff.
See, I would argue that Marvel, it's not that team movies don't work. It's we have a generation of fans now that are conditioned to, okay, I get 4 individual superhero films and then we get an Avengers movie. When in reality, it's not hard to do a Justice League film. It's real simple. You focus on those 3 characters that are in between the middle of us right now, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Trinity. You make them the focus of your Justice League film. Maybe you add a Aquaman or a Cyborg or maybe Hawkman. Hawkman was always cool. You focus on the 3 and have the other members in the Justice League be background characters. And those are the ones that you go forward with because we already know who these first 3 are. You focus on them 3. You can have whoever you want to be, the Legion of Doom to Parallax, whoever it may be, but focus on the Trinity as your mains for your film and let the world flourish from there. Everybody knows who the stars are and they learn about your B players later on. It literally, that's what James Gunn is doing right now. So I don't know.
I can't say that the 3 Snyder films work and then say, well, I need origin stories on top of that. You know, I mean, we got the origin. What we got basically was the origin story for Superman, but I didn't need it for anyone else. I didn't need the origin story for Ezra Miller. I didn't need the origin story for Momoa. We got a little bit of that later on when he got his own movie with James Wan, but it made $1 billion. Don't ask me why. It wasn't that great of a movie. I watched it recently. It's fun, but it's kind of silly. But I mean, you could just launch right into those teams because there's enough familiarity that it'll carry over.
I think you can launch into the team stuff if that's all you're going to do. If all you're going to do is Justice League blah blah blah, then Justice League 2 Age of Ultron, then Justice League Endgame. I'm saying that to be facetious. But if that's all you're going to do is Justice League movies, great. The problem is nobody wants just a Justice League movie. Batman is a character people want to see him in his own standalone thing. Same thing with Superman and Wonder Woman. So why not follow the Marvel template and say, okay, I'm going to make a couple of movies to build this world, and I'm going to tease Darkseid or Steppenwolf like Marvel teased somebody like Thanos.
But
And then after I've built up this anticipation, then I'm going to put these guys in the same movie. I'm going to throw out a movie that makes $1.8 billion that everybody loves, and I've built this world. You can't build a world if you go right into the movie. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Marvel
Sure,
spent.
they did it with 3 movies. They did the whole thing.
They didn't. They went from Superman to Batman vs Superman to Justice League. That's not building a world. Marvel took 4 or 5 movies before they got to the first Avengers movie. I mean, they were building this. They were building this team brick by brick before you get to the first Avengers film. DC,
I don't need it. You say everyone, but it's not everyone. I don't need it.
Well, we're 4 people. There's a million people out there that have said that I've read comments. I've read people say if they would have put their shit together differently, it probably would have worked a little better. They tried to get
that's why I say they've been conditioned for the MCU to think that way.
Who cares how
malcontent? Go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry.
Who cares how 55 million people have been conditioned? If the 55 million people don't go buy tickets to your movies, you're not going to make money.
Well,
they're not going to like it. They're not going to be into it. And
here's the thing, though. All of those movies, when you combine with physical media sales, if we take the 2 BVS at Man of Steel, the first Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and what was the other one? Suicide Squad, the Ayers movie, were financially successful. You're looking at about $4.5 billion per movie if you look them up on the numbers when you combine them with physical media sales. So there's this fallacy that going around to say that these movies were not financially successful, as if $800 million isn't a financial success.
8 of the 15 DC films failed to break even theatrically.
Right, but that had nothing to do with the movies that we're talking about. Those are the ones that you like Blue Beetle and Wonder Woman 1984.
Just because I like a movie doesn't necessarily mean it's good or it's going to be financially successful.
They were terrible. They were terrible.
And that's terrible.
It keeps on going with what I'm saying is once you broke away from that core, team and the Snyder, influence, then it just faded away. But those 5 movies that I listed, which were the original 5, were anywhere from $700 million to over $1 billion per movie. So this idea that, these movies, Batman versus Superman, tanked at the movie theaters. No, it didn't.
Well,
it didn't.
Well,
but
you're right, it didn't tank.
Let me just say this one more thing.
Go ahead.
Let me say this one last thing. What also happened was that you had this chronic, these chronic nerd malcontents that just, sort of hate bomb these movies for, Batman killed. Well, guess what, fuckface? Batman killed in the first movie when Ra's al Ghul fell off that train. His daughter died. He's been killing people for fucking 40 fucking years, you fuckplot. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But, these movies just got spammed by these fucking geeks that should have been shoved back in the locker rooms, their fucking lockers in high school. And it's just, this ridiculous, 1-2 punch that somehow convinced people that, 1, they weren't good movies, 2, that they weren't financially successful. And you could say the good part is subjective, but financially successful is a mathematical issue. And the numbers are all there to prove the opposite. But it just keeps getting repeated and repeated and repeated. And it's bullshit.
Well, I will say that fair or unfair, there is an when you put Batman versus Superman on a film title, there is again, fair or unfair, there is an expectation that most people would have in their minds of what kind of money that movie is going to make. Now, if the DCEU had never happened up to this point, and I would look at you guys and say, hey, the movie Batman versus Superman, you guys are going to think that movie is going to make $1.52 billion easy. There's no way it can't. I mean, Batman versus Superman, that's you got the 2 best comic book characters in a great position. They're going against each other, which is something we've never seen on screen before. How can that movie not make money? And then it goes up there and let me see what it made.
Was it $600-700 million?
Yeah. How did that movie not break $1 billion?
Because
so while it may have been financially successful, or while it may have turned a profit, you look at that and you say to yourself, God, how did we would expect that movie to make 1.3, 1.5 billion? How did it make half that? That's not
Warner Brothers hamstrung their own fucking movie by making him consistently edit and cut and edit and cut and edit. If he had been like he always does with his Snyder cuts, if he had just released the Snyder Cut, which was like 30 minutes longer, which they didn't like. Because he said for years he's just been playing around. He goes over into the home video market, across the street from Warner Brothers or whatever studio he's working for, and he's like, I got a whole other movie for you with 30 minutes, and they're like, yeah, but he goes across to the theater side of the corporation or whatever, and they're like, well, cut this, cut that, cut that. So I mean, like you said, fair or unfair, but they hamstrung their own movie.
There's two things that killed the DCEU. Number one is obviously management. Walter Hamada and all of his cretins that just they friendly fired themselves to death, and they never had a fighting chance. But the second thing that happened was the DCEU came out in the time of the MCU at its glory, and the stands for the MCU, it became popular to hate the DCEU, to review bomb, to crap on, to completely dismantle. But I forget. The podcast is Holy Batcast. It's just a straight up Batman podcast, and one of the guys that's on that show is from Australia. The movie started here. Batman v Superman started here, and before he even got to see the film, before it even released over there in Australia, they had all the negative headlines and reviews had already destroyed it. So once people, 5 people said this movie sucked. Most of them probably didn't even see it before they even said that, by the way. That's what killed this movie. It did the same thing to the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is probably the most fun comic book movie you will ever go to in your life. And the word of mouth killed it because these influencers got on here, and these MCU lovers, and there's some MCU that I like. Some of it's good. But the people shat on it before it ever had a chance, and that's what killed it. You can argue either way, but it's
what
there.
Suicide Squad movie, out of curiosity, was the first?
Yeah, like
you
talking about
the very first one from 2016.
The Air movie, okay.
Yeah. No, the very first one from David Ayer with
the 2016 one.
Yeah, the very first one. Yeah.
And that's another example of where they made him practically shoot a whole other movie. Like the air cut is out there. He talks about that all the time on X, about he's heartbroken.
There's enough footage of just Harley and Joker to make a movie about them. I mean, David Ayer said this 1,000 times. Yeah. Jared Leto has said this on podcasts. I still want to see that footage.
Yeah, Gunn won't let him release it.
Yeah, it's stupid. I don't know why they won't.
Fun, what's the point? I mean, it's at this point the DCEU has ended, so maybe one of these days will see the light of day. I don't know.
He knows that there are a lot of fractured people out there that really aren't. Gunn knows there are a lot of people who really aren't interested in his films before they get off. And if you show them another example of how DC screwed over the fans with a decent movie, like they did with the Snyder Cut, then they're even less likely to want to go see James Gunn, who's king of action comedies. Release more of the usual crap.
And that's another thing right there. These studios kill for a devoted fan base, right? What fan base is more devoted than the Snyderverse cult, as everyone likes to say, to where years later, when there is no product and they're being told there's no hope coming out, every Sunday, restore the Snyderverse and make the Batfleck movie would trend on Twitter when nothing was being done. You're telling me if you didn't make that product that all those Snyderverse people wouldn't come out and support it? I guarantee you they would. But once again, Warner Brothers was ran by morons who couldn't see their hand in front of their face. That's what killed the DCEU.
Well, I think it was a combination of things. A lot of it was the upper management stuff. It had nothing to do with the filming of the movie, the writing. It had nothing to do with the creative stuff. They didn't help the filmmakers' cause for sure. Creatively, some things went wrong, but I mean, whatever. I mean, I want to move on to some other things now. We talked about what that stuff. Now I lost where I was even at. Let's go here. What did the DCEU get right? I mean, let's focus on a couple of things that they 100% nailed. I'll start with you, Werewolf. What do you think is the one or two things that DCEU absolutely nailed?
Absolutely nailed was in making these characters exciting again. Dirtying them up, dragging them through the mud, really testing them through new formulas of what they did with Superman. Someone who just, no matter what he did, he couldn't win. Instead of this straight-laced Christopher Reeve, just flying through and smiling at everybody. Hey, how about if the whole world fucking hates you? Or like the entire political world just is brought to bear on you saving someone's life, and that somehow you still become the asshole. That's an original take on things. I was fascinated by that. I thought, Momoa. I thought Momoa kind of played himself. He's just like a drunk, like the guy was saying. He likes to throw hawks and drink beer. And so who did they bring in? He's a guy who likes to drink beer and just kind of he's surfing. He's like it comes off like a surfer. I loved Affleck's the casting. Affleck's take on Batman. Almost like a Frank Miller kind of guy who's gotten so jaded after 20 years of doing this.
20 years in Gotham. We know what promises were.
Yeah, he's just branding people now. Yeah. So they absolutely got it right by dirtying up the characters. Zack Snyder's just the guy to do that. The guy who has Leonidas kicking people down wells within the first 5 minutes of the movie. The guy who brought Rorschach to the big screen. The guy who brought Dawn of the Dead, to the big screen.
Love that Dawn of the Dead movie.
Yeah, even dirtied up a Romero movie. So yeah, absolutely got it right by dirtying these characters up, letting people die in gruesome ways, and having the heroes gleefully fucking kill people who deserve it. I love it.
I agree.
What about you? What do you think the DCEU got right?
You say me? You cut out.
Yes, you.
Okay. Yeah, you.
All right, me. Yeah, jeez. You know what? I agree with Werewolf. Like we've been saying, Marvel likes to, they could, do something to a whole planet of people and then go get shawarma. I'm like, okay, it's a little fucking goofy, but we're never letting that go. By the way, when that's your contrast. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go kill a bunch of people, then watch It's a Wonderful Life. Like, what the hell? Okay,
yeah.
So being that we leaned in a little more into the darker side of things, not to use that pun, but dark side. That's what this needed. That's and if you're any fan of DC, that's kind of more. It's a little more serious tones, a little more serious takes. You can have your jokes in there, and you're kind of you got your comic relief moments, but it's not eating shawarma more often than not. You know what I mean? So we're gonna add that to Nuke in the Fridge. There's eating shawarma. That's what it's gonna be. That's the new joke. Yeah,
she's Batman eating fucking shawarma. That'd be fucking hilarious. There you go.
The shawarma scene was definitely the MCU's version of Martha.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Hey,
kind of a dead scene.
You say what you want. Go ahead, Jerry.
I was still, I guess, kind of mutual. I'm even trying to downplay it, like mutual acquaintances with somebody from high school who was a huge Superman fan, huge Superman nerd, even though he dressed up like Heath Ledger's Joker just because his girlfriend had little blonde pigtails. But whatever, dude. But this is a man that would he'd go out of his way on Facebook to fight with you just because you posted a picture of Batman. I'd be like, let me tell you why he sucks. And I'm like, did I fucking ask you? Like, it's every single, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I remember that Martha shit. And I'm like, he got his ass beat, right? And absolutely beat the fuck. All he had to do was just poke him. It was over. But no, because you guys have the same mom with the same first name, your moms both have it. So whatever. I don't know. You triggered Batman's one thing where, we know his parents died. So they killed Negan and Maggie, damn it. And he was upset. So yeah, again, with the darker tones. And honestly, I thought, like we said, with the casting, it all seemed to work. Like I said, it's also not just casting the right people for these characters, but you have to make them all on screen be a believable, team. Like if we're gonna go out here and fight demon bugs in the middle of Russia or wherever the hell that was, because there was a random family out there that for some reason we needed to save, as if the entire fucking world wasn't in peril, because there's these 3 boxes that bring about the fucking apocalypse. But we better save that little Russian girl from the big bugs. There are goofy things in this, but I think the tone that we were getting from it kind of outweighed it. I don't know. I can look past stuff like that. And again, if we would have leaned a little more into that 4-hour Snyderverse, I think we would have actually had something good. Looking at movies on their own, like I thought Wonder Woman was amazing. 84,
Great film.
Yeah, 84 was kind of honestly. I don't.
84 can go fuck itself.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's kind of like a don't think about it. I'm like, no, but I'm thinking about it. That's not really Steve Trevor. This is some poor guy who had a life and a job, and just because she's being a greedy fucker, like, oh, I want my old boyfriend from World War I back.
Well, she didn't know at the time, in all fairness. So, I mean, you can't.
We could have stopped it at any. Why didn't
poor
she
bastard jumped on by Gal Gadot? Yeah, poor bastard. Jeez.
So Jeremy, you're telling me there's a movie.
What?
So you're telling me that there's a movie where Pedro Pascal is in it, your daddy is in it, and you don't love? Like, that blows my mind a little bit. I mean,
I didn't say that.
He's backtracking now. He's backtracking.
No. I didn't say anything about Pedro Pascal. I was talking about she is screwing a meat puppet that looks like Chris Pine. That's what I said.
Hey,
when you think about
I'll be right back.
Maybe that guy gave consent off screen and we just didn't see it. We don't know what happened. I don't know.
How does Maxwell Lord do that thing to the camera? He's like, that movie wanted to be good, but it wasn't.
It's good, but it can be.
Well, that's what I was fixing to say. Pedro Pascal doing jazz hands into the camera at Wonder Woman 84 was enough to make me hate the entire movie. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm good.
I had no problem with Max Lord, and again, Pedro Pascal, I have no problem with. I was kind of it. I don't know, the thing with what was her name, Barbara, who played the. What was her name? The damn.
Barbara Gordon?
No, the girl who got the fucking
Cheetah.
Yeah, I'm like, what was her damn name? The villain, yeah.
Oh, she's that girl from Saturday Night Live, Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig, yeah. Kind of happened at the last minute. Although we did see some badass armor that Gal Gadot got there at the end for that fight. That was kind of sweet. But
that golden eagle armor.
Yeah. So I don't know, and I don't want to talk about Flash.
Yeah.
What's her name? Supergirl was cool.
He put babies in a microwave. That's all you need to know about that movie. He microwaved children. That's all that matters.
I was trying to forget about that. And I was trying to forget about, look, I'm trying to separate artist from the shit show. Was what I was trying to do. But it's kind of hard, especially when you're throwing babies in the microwave.
Number 2 for the Amber Heard punch.
While eating a burrito.
Yeah.
So nonchalant about it. You're like, baby microwave, start. And I'm saying, burrito for a minute.
I think, again, you got, as a whole, you got Aquaman, right? I kind of agree. He is just Jason Momoa, but again, he's like, he kind of made Aquaman cool and he's fun. Like, did you really think something like Thor? Don't even lie to me. You never liked Thor. You didn't think Thor was fucking cool either. Chris Hemsworth in the MCU kind of helped that. Again, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. absolutely made that character cool.
Agree.
So that's what I'm saying. You did Aquaman right. You did him a solid. Who else? The introduction of Cyborg I thought was kind of cool. I just wish we had a little more of it. Did proper, because I grew up watching Teen Titans, the only one and the correct one, not that Teen Titans Go shit. It can get out of here.
Booyah!
Thank you. I did not know that was King Ezekiel either for the longest. Like, I went to go to a con and I'm like, oh, King Ezekiel's going to be there. And we were looking him up on the way. They were like, dude, he's Cyborg. I'm like, no, from Teen Titans?
Yeah.
Like, Booyah? He's like, you like Booyah? I'm like,
Also from the one with The Walking Dead too.
Yeah, I'm like, now I got to get him to say "booyah" to me, and he did, and I giggled like a fucking woman. So,
hell yeah.
Well, it was Gamer. He was over there. He came with me. I went as comic book Rick, and he went as Negan. And it was during that time when Negan had just come out, and the second Kari Payton saw him, he grabbed that bat from Gamer. He said, "No, get on your knees right now." And the picture is him like in mid swing like this. And I've got my hatchet up to his neck, to Gamer's neck, and he's like on his knees like this, like I don't know who to look at. It's a great picture. And then he said "booyah" and gave me a pat on the back, and my day was made. But no, that's what I think he got right. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the awkward saying the safe word of Martha when you're in your intergalactic fight and shit in the bed, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, no. Tex, what about you?
Tex,
what about you? What do you think they got right in the DCEU?
Well, I mean, obviously we've highlighted, Affleck as Batman, Cavill Super. We've covered what they got right with the casting. One thing I would like to highlight with what they did, the world of DC, how Metropolis looks, how it feels. Whenever you're there, it feels like it's a city of tomorrow. Then you go across the bay, even though they changed. They played with the geography of how closely these two cities are located. But when you go to Gotham City in BVS, they brought the Gotham of Tim Burton's, 89 or 80 and 91 films with a modern city of Detroit. I love the mesh and how they blended that together. It's always dark, always cloudy. The scene of where Batman is saving that little girl in the cage. And he's like poised up against the wall, and even the girl that he's saving is afraid of him, even though he is the good guy. The cop's like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "No, behind you." And then he's like, flipping off the wall. Everything else, they got them right. One of my favorite things about all this, the warehouse scene alone, where Batman is actually saved. For all you people who shit on the Save Martha scene, if you don't love that scene where he is saving her, I'm calling for your Batman fan card now, because you don't belong in this club. When he is jumping out of the Batwing through that window and just going just off on everybody. He's flinging like wooden crates at people's heads. Just doesn't care. He's pulling, John Wick wishes he could do half of that stuff that Affleck got to do in that movie.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we want. We want Batman beating the absolute crap out of people. And
right.
Like, that there is why you're winning my heart back by being Batman. Like, that's what I want.
Right. What I love and when I talk about the DCEU, I'm talking about Man of Steel, BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League,
Suicide Squad,
Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. And Suicide Squad. That's kind of the six that I'm talking about, because the rest of them went in the weirdo. I don't even count them. Each of these movies, the world felt real. When we go to Paradise Island, when we go to Themyscira, when we go under the water and we see Aquaman's world, these environments feel like we're actually there. I mean, we just reviewed Aquaman 2, and we talked about, Frank, you and I, how good, Atlantis looked, the Trench, all of these other places. They took time and effort to make the worlds feel real, distinct, but they're all connected. That's what was so cool about it. It never got praised enough, but that I always liked the aspect of the landscape of the worlds we were in. I thought it was really
cool. And apparently that Metropolis is just right across Gotham Harbor. I was like,
right. Okay, well, sure. That's what I was saying. That's never been that way, but they played with the geography a little bit, put them together, which for the story's sake, it makes sense. That didn't bother me. That was a minor change. I can deal with it. It's not that big a deal.
I mean, he told Superman to go get the bat. I'm like, you know how fast he can fly, right? It doesn't have to be just right in the background. He can go get him in a flash and be back. Like, you don't have to make Gotham right there. But I mean, I guess for the sake of that's your Batman versus Superman, I mean, sure. Have the two cities by the harbor.
Y'all know me. My favorite Batman is The Dark Knight Returns. I mean, I love Frank Miller, old man, grumpy Batman. That is forever my favorite version of Batman. We got multiple versions of Batman. We got Frank Miller Batman in BVS. We got Batman the Animated Series, Batman and Justice League. You can't look at Bruce Wayne in that movie and then a picture of what he looks like in the animated series and tell me they didn't do exactly the same thing. They nailed him in that movie too. So many good things about these roles, but I could go on forever.
Yeah, for me, again, you guys, I mean, I've already talked about the casting. I think the casting overall was done very, very well. I'll echo what Tech said with the world building. It was actually very, very good. Something I really enjoyed. The one thing that they got right, though, and this is the one thing that I wanted them to do to differentiate themselves from Marvel, was I wanted that much darker tone. And I think that was one of the most important things creatively they could have done. It's like MCU is nice when Tony Stark is making snarky comments to Pepper Potts, but like I said, I wanted Batman to kill people. I wanted Superman to have to kill people. I wanted these things to be much darker. And even the color palettes of these movies were so much darker. I've talked before about how the Harry Potter franchise changes the moment that Cedric Diggory dies. How the color palettes of the entire franchise get much darker for the rest of the franchise until the very end. Like that color tone puts you in a darker frame of mind as you're watching these movies, which is what I wanted DC to be, and that's what they were. They hit that tone just right, and that's exactly what I wanted them to do. And again, the casting was fantastic. But I'll go to Jeremy on this one. What do you think the DCEU got wrong? Because you can approach this from a lot of different angles. Again, a lot of the DCEU's problems were not necessarily creative. They were definitely things that happened at the executive level at the production company. But creatively, let's try to limit it to that. What do you think the DCEU got wrong?
I think, I don't know. Like, I know there's, like we say with Marvel too, there's more than one big bad. There's more than one world-ending event that can happen, I'm sure. Like, Darkseid's not the end, So I'm not saying they're going to blow their whole wad just trying to do something like Steppenwolf and or Darkseid, but I don't know. I feel it just kind of seemed like it happened. Really, the only things that kind of happened was like, hey, we have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, we have Aquaman, and Superman died. And I was like, you're right, he died. I was doing like my Agatha wink to the camera, like, yeah, sure, he died. You don't just kill off Superman. If you do, it's not for long, because comic books, you're not really dead. Unless you're the parents. I mean, or in DC's case, sometimes the aunt or uncle, but that's needed for character development. They don't have.
I can't think of a superhero that has parents alive. That's part of the criteria is dead mom and dad. So it's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Raven's dad like Satan? I mean, she has a dad, but regardless, I mean,
her dad is Trigon in the DC universe. Yeah, Trigon.
Yeah, so I mean, she got that going for her, I guess.
Okay, unless your parent is also a superhero, your parent has to die. Let me amend the rule.
It's kind of a wild scenario, but I'm like, well, she has that going for her. Shit, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so and then you just kind of bring him back, and that was just kind of the end of it. But I didn't really know where we were going. I mean, I'm speaking about the like Justice League movie. Then I'm like, okay, now what do we do? So then when I saw the Snyder cut, and you're like, oh, if the hint was that, oh yeah, we have the black Superman suit, and I was like, oh, is he about to go apeshit? Because that's a thing that happens. I mean, that's kind of a story that you've beaten that we've beaten to death. That Superman. What if Superman turned evil? I'm like, well, that's what the Suicide Squad is for, and that's what basically pulling your entire resources of superheroes to take down a Kryptonian god. So. That kind of left me, wanting more. So I wish we actually would have gotten that. I know we talked about like not having origin stories, but like we don't, like I said, we don't need Superman, Batman. We know what happened. Like I said, Wonder Woman was a great movie. I didn't mind seeing that, and it was setting up some of them like Aquaman. Didn't really do anything with the Flash. He was just kind of there. And then we just did
that motherfucker need to learn how to run. Watching Ezra Miller run is like cancer on legs. That he's the most awkward moving dude I've ever seen in my life. He was horrible.
Well, I mean, if you see, it's awkward watching Superman run in that first movie, he looks like he's on a fucking wire. Like obviously, he's like running in midair like this. I'm like, okay, you whatever, man. It's the 70s, whatever. You can have it. I know. I'm not going back on him. Like I don't care if I see the wires. I get the point. He's out running a train. So, it's goofy.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah.
It's goofy. I don't know how I would look if I was
saw
trying to
it when
run
it happened. Yeah, when you're 9, you don't notice. Now you're like, yeah, this is.
Yeah. It's like I've seen better.
This is not
Well,
good.
it's not much more off-putting to where you're looking at a CG cape. Like that's not actually on the suit, and it's like flowing like you're in a comic book panel, and there's no wind in this scene whatsoever. That always takes me out of it just the same. So it's the same 6.5, half dozen others. So yeah,
it's a CG cape, not a CG fresh morning shave. So no mustaches. No, at least it's not that. I'm sorry. I maybe CG mustache was a weird choice, but I get it. You can't really look. I get it. If he had to keep it, I mean, I don't know what else he's gonna do. I don't know.
I need to see. I've never seen images of Cavill with the mustache in the suit. I need to see that.
Hold on, that new movie, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, doesn't he have like a big mustache in it now?
That's gonna be good.
Yeah,
that's gonna be good.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that movie. That looks like some over the top Tarantino crazy bullshit, and I'm here for it.
It's a true story too.
Oh yeah, it's a real Christopher Lee. If you ever look up anything in Christopher Lee's life, these motherfuckers like hunted Nazis in World War II. Yeah. I'm like, how badass is that? That's cool. Yeah,
it's good. I think it's the first SAS mission or something like that. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Tex, what do you think? What do you think the DCEU got wrong? What do you think they did that what you think was crap and you would have done it differently?
Well, I'll get the obligatory one out of the way. That was jumping the gun and
crap, we lost Frank.
Oh,
what did you say?
Anyway, I'll keep talking. I'll keep talking until he comes back. Obviously, the main thing that they screwed up on was throwing Snyder's vision for this entire world out the window prematurely. I mean, they literally threw the baby out with the bathwater. Like the cake wasn't even made, and they just done chucked it out. And people crapped on BVS, the theatrical cut. How this plot hole and that plot hole. Well, the ultimate cut literally fixed all of those problems and was such a better movie. That's the only version of that movie I'll watch. But the other places where they really screwed up were literally just trying to be Marvel. We have our new diverse superhero film. Here's blah, blah, blah. Like, I hated Blue Beetle. I mean, we reviewed it here. I think Jeremy, you, Frank, and Cora liked it a little bit or somewhat whatsoever. I can't remember. I hated the movie. I tried to rewatch it again. I kind of had to work through to get through it. I mean,
which one?
The Blue Beetle.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, we had the stuff like Shazam. I've never been a Shazam fan.
I was going to mention. Should we talk about Shazam because Batman, Superman was kind of there, kind of.
Well,
Then we had to mention Black Adam. So
the main thing DC Warner Brothers screwed Warner Brothers, to use a wrestling term here instead of Bret Hart. They shot themselves in the foot. There's no way around it. They could have had everything, but they threw it away for nothing. And they threw it away to be Marvel light, like Werewolf said, with being action comedies, and none of it worked. Once we got to the Shazams and Shazam 2s and Blue Beetles and the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey abortion that should have never came to screen, because what even is that movie? The title's so big it didn't even fit on the cue card above the door when you go into the movie theater. Who thought that was a good idea? But either way, there's so many things they screwed up on I could go off on, but it's really sad that many stupid people have that much money or are in charge of such beloved properties, because the fan community makes such better product because we're interested. This is not just a money thing for us. We actually like these things, but it's sad to see what the rich people do, unfortunately.
Yeah, apparently I'm rocking Casey's internet connection right now. I don't know what the hell happened with that one. But
you play so many Fortnite games, don't you know?
I know. But let's see. Having missed
Like,
what Tech said, I'll just go into my spiel now. I talked about the production company not handling things well. That's well known. I still think that kind of following the MCU template, not necessarily doing things the way they did it, but setting up your universe would have been better. But one thing that I think they really screwed the pooch on, and I say this as a guy who believes that Joss Whedon is one of the reasons why the MCU became what it did and all the work he did in Phase 1, is that bringing him in to finish Justice League, I think, was a terrible idea. Not because he's a bad director, but because his director sensibilities are very different than what Zack Snyder was trying to do with the film. The scene where they're all sitting there talking, they're debating on whether they're going to go resuscitate Superman or whatever, and the whole thing with the golden lariat around Aquaman's foot, and the whole joke about him telling us the truth and all that. I thought to myself, the first time I watched that movie, I'm sitting there in the theater and I'm like, that's a Joss Whedon scene. Because that's a kind of scene that I would have seen in Avengers that I don't think Zack Snyder would have put in here. And I think that because the directing sensibilities were so uneven, that's why the theatrical cut of that movie that we got first, that's why that movie seems so uneven. It was glaringly obvious, the scenes that were shot by Zack Snyder and the scenes that were shot by Joss Whedon. And while they weren't bad scenes in and of themselves, most of them anyway, they didn't work together as a whole in a film. It would have been a much better decision so if Zack Snyder had to step away to deal with his personal tragedy, that maybe somebody who was his second unit director or maybe one of the producers stepped in to finish it, somebody who had been there from the beginning of this project to foster it the rest of the way and to kind of keep the tone that it wanted to keep. Because once you bring too much levity into a very dark thing, it just kind of throws it all out of whack. And I think one of the reasons why the Snyder cut was liked so much more, I think it was better than the theatrical cut by a lot. I still don't think it was quite the movie I wanted it to be, but it was markedly better than the theatrical version we got, is because you had that same tone, that same vision kept throughout the entire movie from start to the end credits. And that's why that movie ended up getting received much, much better. And that's why it really was much better, because it was one vision all the way through and not two different people and their competing visions of what this one thing is supposed to be. And to me, that was just another example of people in the offices not knowing how the hell to make decisions like this. Granted, again, a weird situation with Zack Snyder and his family and all that. But still, I mean, going to somebody who you knew was going to have a vastly different directorial style was just not smart. And I think that was one of the biggest mistakes they made, because I think Zack Snyder's version of the Justice League was so much better than the original theatrical version that we got. I mean, dude, 4 hours of that thing. I sat and watched all 4 hours of that thing twice. I've watched it all start to finish twice, and I think it's good. Like I said, it's not as great as I want it to be, but it's still a really, really obvious step up from what we got in the original theatrical cut. His vision was.
If y'all haven't watched it in black and white, go watch the black and white version. Because it adds. I mean, Zack Snyder treated the Justice League as if they were gods. That's what he based all of this on. And putting that film in black and white it for me, it felt like I was watching like a classic movie, and it kind of transports you to another world. It's like the epicness is up for, sure.
Yeah, but moving on, I mean, there's one thing you can't ignore. Aside from the interference and relative terrible decision making that was happening in the studio, there was some stuff off screen, off camera, that had nothing to do with the movie. And that is Ezra Miller. We talked about him ad nauseum. Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, that nonsense. And then, of course, the Ray Fisher allegations of his time on the set not being very good at all. There was a lot that kind of turned a lot of people off to even wanting to like this franchise because of this. And there were several movies that came out after all this stuff started to fan. I mean, because I think it was Ray Fisher's situation kind of came at first, and I think it was Ezra Miller, and then I think shortly thereafter is when the whole Heard Depp thing became news. It's unfair to the people that work really hard to get these movies to the screen, but you can't deny the fact that it did have a big effect on the perception of these films, one way or the other. I'll go to you first, Werewolf. How big of an impact do you think that all this stuff had on people's view of the franchise?
I think at its highest point, it's a moderate effect. I don't think that it made the movies that were released after these core movies we've been talking about it didn't make them any better. You know, if you looked at the other movies that came along, Black Adam, Whedon's Justice League, and I agree with you 100% that was where the schism started. It's like a very bad fracture. They never seem to really recover from it. But I despite the, legitimacy of the controversy, it didn't make the movies that were released after that. They were still crap movies. Whether it was Guns, The Suicide Squad, which I was not a fan of at all. If you want to talk about as inverted a Snyder interpretation as it gets, you're right there. You bring Whedon in, who literally is the shawarma guy. They brought the shawarma guy into the DCU, and you saw how it worked.
Shawarma guy.
Yeah, they brought the shawarma guy. They literally brought the shawarma guy in and said, "This guy directed the fucking shawarma movie. This is what we want. We want the MCU in here. Let's bring him over. No problem. He did Age of Ultron too. Let's bring him over." And it didn't fucking work. So, I mean, yeah, it had a moderate, sort of impact, but the people that were crapping on the DCU at that point had been crapping on it before. The big channel nerds, those sorts of things. So it was just adding on. They're chronic malcontents anyway. So, they would have found something else. I didn't think The Flash was that bad. The Flash was far from the worst movie I've ever seen. I think we've talked about it.
I thought that movie was a lot of fun. I thought
the second half was better than the first half, but it wasn't an awful movie. I mean, 2 Ezra Millers was kind of a lot to deal with. I saw the second Aquaman movie. It was not the worst thing I've ever seen. And Amber Heard was right there. She's still a fucking hottie. She's a fucking psycho hottie, but she's still a fucking hottie. And
would you let her shit in your bed, Werewolf?
No, I probably
would. You let her shit in your bed?
No, I wouldn't let anyone shit in my bed. That's an absolute.
She ain't got enough money now to pay you to shit in the bed, so no.
She couldn't do it for free. I don't give a fuck.
I do her in Texas bed, but not mine.
Yeah.
Okay, Amber Heard to go take a shit in bed.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I saw those movies and they weren't bad, but if you had taken away those controversies, it wouldn't have made those movies any better. That's what I'm saying. So a moderate impact.
I don't know. Tex, what do you think? I mean, we talked ad nauseum. It seemed like every other week there was something coming out about Ezra Miller, and then Ray Fisher, who never really specified what some of his allegations were. He just kind of ran stuff.
I think it was racism.
Yeah,
from Josh Whedon allegedly.
He still hasn't really elaborated on a lot of things, which is weird to me. I'm not saying that this stuff didn't happen. I'm just saying that he should have. And then, of course, Amber Heard. We talked about that stuff a lot. I don't know. Do you think that it had any kind of an impact on at least how they saw kind of the second half of the DCEU?
Well, see, if Warner Brothers were smart, they would have just flushed the whole situation, but they couldn't really do that. So, what are you going to do? But
yeah, you can't flush it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I got you.
By the time these problems arose, the DCEU was dead already. It kind of didn't matter. It was. I mean, that dead horse had been beaten into a pile of goo already, and it was like, oh well, here's some more crap on that pile of crap. So let's see how big we can make it at this point. I mean, obviously Ezra Miller. I've spent too much of my life talking about him on YouTube as already, so I'm not going to give him any more time. Well, whatever it is this week, I don't even care. Amber Heard. I mean, it's like Frank, you and I discussed when we reviewed Aquaman 2. She was fine in the film. She was in the parts that she needed to be, and whatever. I mean, and it was, it was what it was. The Ray Fisher cyborg stuff, that came out a little late to have any real effect. Like, we didn't hear about that until the kind of the time to do something about it was gone way at that point. So, I mean, yeah, this was, like I said, beating a dead horse. Who cared? Most people had checked out of the DCEU already and didn't even realize it was around. So they didn't care, so why should we?
Yeah, Jay, what do you think? I mean, you were wrapped up with the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing for a while.
Oh, you think?
Me, you, and Cora talked about it pretty extensively.
I didn't wear a fucking pirate hat when I heard he won. I didn't drink a thing of rum. Definitely didn't do that the day I heard that happen.
Not at all.
Hey,
no.
Did you watch the Tubi movie about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Because I did. I bet you didn't even watch that movie.
I don't think the gavel had even come off the fucking desk yet. And they made that movie. I was like, okay, chill. I just watched the whole thing happen.
I begrudgingly, and I had to chastise myself for punishing myself for sitting through that. But by God, I even watched that movie too. But
Goddamn. What
do you think the impact may have been on the Ezra Miller, Amber Heard, and situations from Ray Fisher?
Well, it's kind of like Werewolf and Tech said. I'm like, well, the movies were kind of already done and made, so they were going to be what they were going to be. And I think it's like when we talked about someone making a movie. I don't remember. We just did one recently where we said like, oh, they made this movie like a year ago, and then like, oh, it released, and then like 9/11 happened, and they're like, oh, that's awkward. We got to pull it back. I'm like, you realize they made this before, right? It didn't have anything to do. Like, I know that's fresh on your mind, and then now you see the movie that's a little touchy with that subject. I'm like, yeah, it's you got to understand that like this was already made, and then when all these things start happening, that you shitting in the bed and your dog stepping on a bee, whatever. And you continue. I mean, I turned to the Jim Carrey at one point. We were talking about Ezra Miller. I'm like, stop breaking the law, asshole. Jesus, dude. Like we said, it seemed like every other damn week we were talking about something else that happened. So it doesn't, I mean, it's like, it's kind of hard to go into it and not be thinking about it. So like when I watched The Flash, I'm like, I agree the second half was probably a lot better than the rest of the movie because you weren't throwing babies into microwaves. And shit.
That was
like
a bad look.
Microwave children.
I don't understand who included that scene. It was just a bad.
That's just bad. Period. I don't know why you thought whatever. Quicksilver made a better fucking way of saving people in slow motion than you did, man. Come on, what are you doing?
He even did it to color music too.
And I was like, and he did it to a better fucking song. Like, come on. those were not sweet dreams. They weren't made of microwave babies. God damn.
Hey, but if you believe the conspiracy theories, most of Hollywood don't mind those microwave children, but that's a different kind of podcast.
If that's Hollywood telling itself, I mean, I think we know.
Frank's
guys.
going QAnon. Q.
maybe that's how they get the adrenochrome is you have to microwave them. I don't know. I've never done it, but hell, it's possible.
Yeah, but I'll admit when we watched the 4-hour, Snyder cut. I think that was like balls deep in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing. And in the theater I was in, no joke, it was the part where they come to get the mother box from Atlantis. And like she's in the middle of the fight and she gets like punched right in the fucking face. Like she falls against the wall. The movie like actually froze and stopped in their theater. And we all went, no, come on, kick her ass. Fuck. Like we were so mad. I'm like, I want to see it. It just stopped right when she like landed into a wall. I was like, oh, that's it. Come on. So it definitely, kind of hangs over it. But like they said, I mean, the movie's still going to be what it is. I think we said there were reshoots with The Flash, right? There were some things that were kind of
a lot of them.
They reshot it.
Oh yeah, there was.
Because they ended up cutting so much shit out. Because they didn't want to have any more Batman in there because they're like, the Snyderverse is getting ready to wrap up anyway. Why put Batman in there and make all these promises that we're never going to pay off on?
They cut a lot out, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there were some changes to it, but I mean, yeah, the movies are still going to be what they are, and they're not. like we were saying, they're not the worst things I've ever seen. So I don't know. There was more to do with Cyborg and the Snyder Cut. The Flash was. You said 2 Ezra Millers is a lot to handle. I think fucking 1 is a lot to handle. So that's just my opinion. I'm like, oh, cool. I have to see 2 Ezra Millers.
The state of Hawaii couldn't handle 1 Ezra Miller, much less the rest of the world.
We got an Ezra Miller for each island of Hawaii. Damn it!
He just got recast as a voice actor in the new Invincible.
Yeah, I read
that. Recast as one of the voice actor characters in Invincible now. Yeah, he's finally got another gig. He went away quietly for a couple of years. And,
going into a booth and saying some lines is a little different than having to see your face, I guess. I don't know.
For their sake, I hope he stays away from karaoke bars. He might go punching people again. But,
Yeah. Someone just goes to his booth and beats the shit. I'm like, I didn't like the way you fucking said that line.
Let me say something real quick, though. I mean, we got to the nightmare scene at the end of the Snyder Cut, and I was very surprised to see Amber Heard. Because she's in it for like 2 minutes. I gotta tell you, in that particular nightmare scenario, like I was ready to see that fight, like where it cuts off. She's got the trident. Ezra's got some sort of roided out suit. And they're ready to fucking rock and roll. And when it cuts, I'm like, fuck, man. I at that moment I didn't have a problem with Amber Heard. I didn't have a problem with Ezra Miller. Let's see them fucking go at it, and while the Joker just sits around and laughs. That would have been fucking awesome.
I will deal with all of that. Amber Heard and Ezra Miller could star. Names on top of the credits if they were to give us Zack Snyder's Justice League's Part 2 and 3. Because we were going to get an entire film of the nightmare, of that whole deal, before they go back in time and whatever. I love Nightmare Batman. That's one of my favorite iterations. I mean, he's got the camo gear, the AK, the whole thing. Him and Joker in like a weirdo team up situation. That would have been an amazing watch. And we got robbed of that, but we'll never see it, unfortunately.
Watching Batman have to grit his teeth, like, dude, I'm gonna kill you. Once we're done with this, but like,
what does Jared Leto say? You sent a Robin to do a Batman's job or something like that. I forget the exact line that he uses to him, but like you can see Affleck, like the fire is building in his eyes, like I want to rip your head off right now, but I know I can't.
He tells him all these people keep dying because you don't have the courage to just die yourself. You just keep sending other people. Just come up and fucking do it yourself. And he's not wrong. Not exactly.
And for Jared,
right.
His Joker had all of the police badges of, I mean, from what we're told, policemen that he killed. I mean, he's wearing a flak jacket full of, there's so much backstory into that, what his Joker was. That would have been so fun to see in that nightmare scenario. I wish. With his with as deep of a debt Warner Brothers is, sell off the rights to the Snyderverse characters to Netflix. Zack Snyder's already there. You're telling me he wouldn't pick up where he left off and go forward? I know he would. Come on, people, sell it to Netflix. Jesus.
And it's not like you don't have 3 different, versions of all your characters out there now anyway.
Right.
Batman out there.
What's it going to hurt?
You've got Joaquin Phoenix's Joker in a different universe.
Warner Brothers needs the money. The Snyderverse would take the product, so give us what we want. I mean, why not? What's the harm here?
I think the biggest...
go ahead, Jay.
I was at the biggest fumble of the ball. I think is something that I know Frank is very passionate about, that we never got to see what Ben Affleck made of this Batman movie that he wrote out. That was an absolute banger.
I've heard that script was fucking amazing. I've read so many people that have seen the script and they're like, this movie was going to be fucking off the charts.
Sons of bitches.
And that's what happens.
From what I saw,
Affleck was passionate about that. So when you get someone who's passionate about it, give them the creative license to do it. They can make some magic, and that might have saved the Snyderverse if they'd let him do it.
It might have.
The fact that we got to see Ben Affleck's Batman standing on the Bat Tank from the Dark Knight Returns comic book at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that will never go any further, will forever haunt me, because I want to see that tanker going through the streets of Gotham. That would have been epic to see, and we'll never get it, but too late.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the whole Miller, Hurd, Fisher situation, they did come kind of towards the end. I think one of the biggest impact that it had was if the last several movies were going to be loved by fans, the casual fan, because remember, it's like there's hardcore people like this that are going to go see these movies anyway. I mean, for all the failures in my mind creatively that the DCEU had, I was still there opening weekend to see these movies. I wanted them to be great. I wanted them to be good. But for the casual fan, which is where these franchises really make their money, for the casual fans, they probably got turned off by a lot of this stuff for various reasons. I mean, it's hard not to get turned off by Ezra Miller and some of the allegations. It's for a lot of people, they would look down on this franchise after some of the things that Ray Fisher made allegations of. But I've never seen two sides of a camp so ardently opposed as the whole Depp versus Hurd thing. I mean, that to me was like, it was insane the way that those two things kind of went against each other. But yeah, I mean that impacted the casual fan, which is where a lot of these movies make money. It's like, people like us are going to go see these movies, 1, 2, maybe 3 times in theaters. But it's like the casual fans won't, and if they won't go see this movie one time, or if they're saying, "I'm going to wait for it because whatever, I don't want to give any money to this franchise and just continuing to employ Ezra Miller or any of these other or mistreating Ray Fisher, blah blah blah," then dude, that's one of the things that hurts. And then when these people do get a chance to sit and watch the movie, their impression of it is probably not what you would want it to be. They're just like, the movie was all right, but was it worth it because this asshole Ezra Miller or yada yada yada. So I think it hurt the perception down the line, and I think that probably is one of the reasons why when they brought on Gunn and Safran, they were faced with a decision: do we try to fix what's here, or do we just wipe the slate clean and start over? And because I personally think the DCU was salvageable, I think there was enough there to work with to where you could have got some vision in there, some guys that were going to be the Kevin Feige of this thing, and they weren't going to be interfered with by the stuffed suits at WB. And they could build. There was plenty of there to build on still, but I mean, there was so much animosity coming from different directions that they probably was looking at it like, you know what? I don't think that it's going to be worthy of putting the time and effort in to try to polish some of these different piles of turds that we would have to deal with, like the Ezra Millers and so on and so on. So why not just go ahead and redo this thing from the jump and start over again? And it's unfortunate because, like I said, it's. Batman, Affleck as Batman was great. Henry Cavill Superman was great. I really like the casting, and now I feel like we're going to have not a lesser cast because I don't want to shit on any of these people that I have not seen on screen doing these, performing these roles yet. But now we're not going to have this dream cast that we had come to see that we're like, hey, I really like these people here. I think they can do great. We're going to see other people that are never really going to quite fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we got the best Batman back. We got George Clooney. Didn't you see the end of the movie?
Jeremy, don't.
Hey, I didn't make the decision. I didn't do that.
Just for that, Jeremy, I'm gonna put this image on a T-shirt, and I'm gonna put your face where Jason Momoa's is, and I'm gonna have hearts coming out of the eyes.
I mean, okay. But what did Werewolf just say? I mean, she ain't hard to look at. Maybe you clean a little shit up her head.
I remember her. I know a lot of people love Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but he made another Hunter S. Thompson movie that's a lot less well known called The Rum Diary, and it's got Aaron Eckhart. And that was my first exposure to Amber Heard, and you're like, what the fuck? Jesus Christ, she was beautiful. I mean, you didn't know.
She did a movie with. I can't remember the name of it. She did a car movie with Nicolas Cage. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, wasn't that Live? No, not Live. Drive Fast or something.
Drive Fast or something.
Or Drive Hard.
That
or
one.
Shit. Yeah.
But my favorite Amber Heard film will always be the opening of Zombieland, where she gets bashed in the head with the toilet lid. That is her greatest role to date, where Jesse Eisenberg has to just bludgeon her with that toilet lid.
I have to look because these movies came out like a year within each other. Give me 1 second. No, I don't want that. The fuck? Oh, they come out the same. Did they come out the same year? That's gonna piss me off. Hold on.
What movies?
Zombieland came. Okay, no, I was wrong. So my first, I got it. So my first exposure to Amber Heard was a movie called Never Back Down. If anyone's,
I've seen that. I've seen that. Yeah,
I was just like, I was like, well, damn, if you're just cast, I mean, nice. I'd go to the party too and get my ass kicked by that guy that's definitely a high schooler and he's not shredded like fucking Wolverine. Yeah, sure. And then it was definitely Zombieland, which was a year later. So getting her face smashed in with the back of a toilet lid. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying. Look, yeah, I understand. She's not hard to look at, but I'd rather her just float away in the ocean somewhere else.
I'll hang out with her. I'll just make sure I have plastic sheets on my bed. I think that's how we work this thing out.
You know what I mean?
Separate beds might be better.
And no Mexican food, because if we get Taco Bell on the girl, she can go off at any time. So, no Mexican
tacos. Shit.
Well, let me ask you guys this real quick. We did have other DC stuff happening, albeit in a separate universe or something like that. But
my fucking mom in plastic PJs. God damn it!
Make her wear a diaper. Get her some Depends. She'll be fine.
Yeah, we did have some other fairly popular stuff going on in the DC world on the TV side that was not part of the official DCEU. That was pretty popular. Do you think that maybe the fans were kind of split between what they were getting on the CW with like Arrow and the Flash and all the other stuff, and that maybe they didn't, not folding some of these characters into the larger DCEU may have affected things? I mean, because there was a pretty big groundswell of support to bring Grant Gustin's Flash MCU or Oliver Queen from Arrow into the movie side of things. I mean, do you guys think that would have been a good idea? I'll start with you, Jay. What do you think?
I don't think it would have been a bad idea. I mean, it's not, it's not like you can't bring film and, big screen, small screen together. Because you already have, I mean, two of the best shows, like we said, like Arrow. I haven't seen Arrow, but I've heard it's fucking phenomenal. I've seen some of the Flash, and again, it's great. So it's already good. I don't see why. I mean, now maybe I don't know if there'd be some contingency because, like, well, this is CW, this is on, a show, not, some big budget. Now we're under different rules or different people. I don't know. That there may be some legal crap that's going to go on behind the scenes, which we've been talking about. So maybe it's a good idea they didn't touch it, because if they would have taken it, then ruined it by making it into, these movies. I don't know. Like I said, maybe if it's good, they didn't ruin a good thing. But I'm saying, like, it was there. You didn't have to, you could have brought them in, and that would have been a pretty funny. Because, like I said, your character of Flash is your one that can do the universe hopping and all that other crap, and you can also Days of Future Past everything in just one little lap, if you needed to. So he's kind of your catalyst if you want to reset things. But because now you have to explain, like, well, now there's the CW universe, because now it's two different versions of the Flash. So I don't know.
I don't know. Tex, what do you think? I mean, do you think that the relative success of the TV shows, I thought they were kind of hit or miss, but do you think the relative success and popularity of the TV shows had any kind of effect on the movies?
Well, for the ones that don't know, these worlds actually did cross over. Whenever the CW did Crisis on Infinite Earths, they had Ezra Miller's Flash appear in the Flash episode that they did, and you had Grant Gustin and Barry Allen in the same place, like, I like your suit, it's cloth. Oh, well, yours is armor. I forget what they said exactly. But they did cross over. But no, these worlds wouldn't have blended well. Arrow stopped being good after season 2. Well, after that show declined. Flash was hit or miss. like Supergirl was, the Black Lightning show that never really caught on. The CW audience the CW shows were the romance version of these characters. I mean, hell, their version of Arrow was Batman. I mean, he was Batman with a hood and a domino mask on, without the cowl. So, you know, the CW verse, there was bright spots, but it would not have fit in the Snyder verse. I mean, just look at those two characters. The top is the kid version of the ones on the bottom. I mean, it's different worlds, different tones, different. No, I think the only one that could have blended well would have been Grant Gustin or Stephen Amell. The rest of them, I don't think so.
But do you think the success of the popularity may have affected the shows? Because I mean, think of this.
No.
Here's a wild stat that is hard to wrap your mind around. They announced the Flash movie with Ezra Miller the same year that the Flash TV show started. The Flash TV show ended its 9-season run before that Flash movie they announced ever saw the screen.
I don't think the TV shows affected it, to be honest with you, because it's clearly a different world. I mean, I hate anybody that says, "Oh, well, people will get confused if there's more than one version." There's been more than one version for years. Audiences are smart. We know that Batman is not the same as that one. I mean, we're not stupid here. The TV shows, if anything, they helped carry it on. I mean, hell, Smallville was going on while Superman movies were in the theater. Never had a problem. You know, one good turn deserved another, and they just, their tide raised all ships. So, I don't see an issue with it. It's, it was fine for what it was. The CW audience wasn't necessarily the one that was going to the theaters. That's why they were watching at home. It's a teen audience. But I don't think it affected it too much. I wouldn't say so.
I don't know. Werewolf, what do you think? Do you think that the TV shows kind of may have affected the view of the films?
No. I consider them I consider them to be completely separate. And unrelated. A fan of the movie, a fan of the movies could be watching the shows, or a fan of the shows might be watching the movies, but I don't think they really had any impact. I think in some cases you got treated to some pretty good television. I'll go a little further than Tex. I enjoyed the 3rd season of Arrow when we got the Ra's al Ghul. That 2nd season with Deathstroke, but that 1st season was fucking fire. When he pulled
That's when he went full Batman.
Yeah, when he was going to kill his own mother. He was going to kill his own mother. He failed this city. I'm like, holy shit, he's going to kill his mother. The only thing that really dragged me about that show was Laurel Lance, who I think we talked about. She was just a and Iris in the Flash series. She was just annoying.
How many Black Canaries did they end up having? Like 4 or 5?
Something like that.
There was a lot of them.
But
it was ridiculous.
We had that show that I kind of liked, Legends of Tomorrow. That was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
But then, we had one, in my mind, one perfect season of television that no one ever talks about. Constantine. Constantine.
That one with Matt Ryan. Yes.
Yeah. And this is straight out of the Hellblazer. The Hellblazer storylines. And it only lasted one season, and then it got canceled, and then he got folded into Legends of Tomorrow. They didn't treat him right. And
wasn't that originally on NBC? Then it moved over to CW.
Yeah. And he's also the voice for Constantine in the animated universe. And he just happens to look exactly like Constantine, like John.
Oh, he's perfect casting.
Comics, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I really don't think it had any impact one way or the other on the films, because by the time a lot of those shows were in their heyday, the fracture had already occurred. So the damage had already been done. And if anything, they may have been keeping the DC afloat when they were just kicking out one bad movie after another. You might, have had a 50-50 shot with a halfway decent television series. As a teacher, I remember a lot of my kids were watching them, on their study halls or whatever. They would pull out their iPad and watch an episode of Arrow or something like that. And yeah, it probably helped more than it hurt.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily affected. One thing I noticed was interesting is about the time that the Flash movie was finally coming out, and there was all this talk of they're done with Ezra Miller at this point because of all his personal issues and legal issues. A lot of people were like, okay, now bring over Grant Gustin. Now at the end of Flashpoint, you can have him say, okay, he just magically turns into Grant Gustin's Flash. We bring Grant Gustin over. There was a lot of people that wanted them to fold specifically Flash and Green Arrow into the larger DCEU, but I was like, I kind of like the way their stories are told in episodic form, not really in film form. I really liked Arrow when it first came out. The middle of the show really kind of lost its way to me. And towards the end, the whole taking place half in the future with his daughter, I was like, whatever.
It got weird.
I still haven't watched the last season of The Flash yet. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I watched the first several episodes of Legends of Tomorrow. I couldn't really get into it. I never watched Black Lightning, even though I've had some friends tell me that was actually pretty fun. I never actually watched Black Lightning. Batgirl, I never got a chance to watch
Constantine.
Batgirl.
Did you get the Constantine?
I've watched some of Constantine. I thought it was pretty good. I just haven't gotten back around to it yet. But I thought that to me, it's like what I was saying about how DC kind of should feed off that darker tone, that darker vibe. That's the kind of character that I think you should go after. If you're not going to have Batman and Superman standing forefront, you need to go after a guy like him to help set the tone for your entire universe. And that's possibly you could say that's where they kind of missed, is they didn't really take advantage of a character like that and grow him a lot more. I don't think it hurt the show. Werewolf says something interesting. Maybe it was kind of the one thing. It was their one saving grace when they were churning out kind of like dud after dud in the theater. It's like, that was maybe the only thing that was keeping you going. Maybe that's one of the reasons why a lot of people wanted to see Grant Gustin and Arrow go into the larger universe. Like those are your big guys. To see them on screen with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck would have been cool. But maybe that's the way to kind of bridge that gap. The one thing I didn't like about the Arrowverse is that it seemed like every show, it wasn't just like one guy doing his thing. It was like somehow Arrow turned into 75 vigilantes, and then in the Flash there was 35 people on his team, and I'm like, you can't be a superhero and have half the city know who the fuck you are. I mean, it works for Iron Man because that's kind of the way it is, but it's like that flies in the face of even having an alter ego. And so many people knew, like Tom Fenton, the guy that played Draco Malfoy. He's in that one season of The Flash, and then he goes away. He leaves that show to go back to London, and he knows who the Flash is. He knows the Barry Allen's Flash, but now you get this guy rolling around England who knows the truth. And it's like, come on, you can't have 200 people on your super team that know your secret identity and still be a secret. You know what I mean? It just seems silly to me.
You've never seen a more diverse, woke team of superheroes than you got on the CW squad, like on Arrow. You had every creed, sex, and color on his Arrow team, and all of them were some kind of vigilante. It was so funny to watch the diversity at play. Oh no, I'm not saying it was a problem. I just thought it was hilarious because it was glaringly obvious what they were doing. I just thought it was always funny.
They could have all been straight white males, but there were 300 of them. That makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. But real quick before we get out of here, let me ask you guys. I'll start with you, Tex. What are your top? Give me your top 3 DCEU films.
He's muted.
Give me your top 3 DCEU films.
Oh, there you go. Talking to you.
Oh.
No, I was talking to you.
Well, damn it! Quit cutting out. Oh yeah, you're talking to Tex, not me. I was listening.
Okay. I thought you were talking to Jeremy. Okay, sorry about that. Top 3. That's easy. BVS at 1. My favorite version of Batman. My favorite Superman. The set dressing, the acting. I mean, so much that we've gone on about. 2. Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's the wrap up to the story that started like 10 years before that. It was just so much fun to watch. It's a 4-hour epic that I can't actually want to revisit. I'll be honest with you. Number 3, this one was a battle. This was between Suicide Squad 2016 and Man of Steel. I got to go Suicide Squad. As much as I love Man of Steel, Suicide Squad is a fun watch. It is the most comic book movie I've ever seen. I love the Harley Quinn, the whole Mad Love tie-in storyline that they did, everything else. I got to go Suicide Squad at 3.
I don't know, Jay, what about you? What were your 3 favorite movies of the DCEU?
Oh boy. I would I guess if we're counting the Snyder Cut as a movie, I would definitely say that was, again, it was definitely worth watching. I would say I'd put that at number 1 because I'm like, man, think of what we could have had. And honestly, I hate we had to keep saying, well, think of what we could have had. Think of what Ben Affleck could have done. I'm like, you know what? That probably would have been up there. I definitely would have been up there too if we could have seen it. So we got a taste of the good life, and that's kind of, it's in the gutter now.
Bittersweet.
Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, I got the freeze frame on Amber Heard getting punched in the face. That's just my own personal experience with that. So that's maybe why it holds a little bit of a thing for me because, again, I was ready to pull the pirate hat and the rum out again. So, no. So, I would say number 2, I thought the first Wonder Woman movie was pretty damn good. And I think I've rewatched it multiple times. I thoroughly enjoy that movie. And, oh, God. I don't know about 3. That's definitely not the Flash. That's for sure. Definitely not. I know I was going to say, Tex, I'm surprised you didn't pick the other Suicide Squad because I thought you liked the other one more than the 2016 version.
Oh, no. The 2016 is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. I love that film.
Yeah. Because I don't want to just pop out and say Suicide Squad as well because I thought the one with John Cena was I didn't expect him to get his own fucking show, so that's I didn't have that on the bingo card.
I can't pick the second one because they killed off my boy Boomerang and they did Rick Flag dirty in that movie. And I really liked both of those characters.
That's true. They did, they did shoot Pete Davidson right in the fucking face, which is what he deserved. So
haven't we all wanted to do that at some point and hear you talk?
I don't know. And I don't know why you just made, I thought Michael Rooker was going to be a fucking badass, and the first thing he does is run the fuck away screaming. I was like, what is this movie? Come on.
Yeah.
I'll say Suicide Squad.
I don't know. Werewolf, what about you? You having an affection for all of these movies, how hard was it to even try to pick a top 3?
Yeah. It's not. And I would just go with the 3 Snyder films. And here's the thing.
It's an easy pick.
I wouldn't go 1, 2, 3 because I consider them all to be on the same level. It's a progression, and basically it's a Superman arc. Starting out and then, discovering his place in the world in the second one, and then ultimately he is, no matter what, even in the face of people who hate him, supposed to sacrifice. That's his cross to bear, so to speak. Loses his life, regains it in the third movie. And just like Russell Crowe's narrative says, everyone else is going to stumble. They're going to be, really fucking up.
Follow you into the sun.
Yeah, eventually they will join you. And Russell Crowe's words from the first movie come true at the end of the third, where he's got the black suit on. He knows who he is. It doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. And he's just smashing the shit out of Steppenwolf and doing the things single-handedly that entire team could not do on its own.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'd put them all 3 together. I just want to say real quick, the one thing that I didn't like about Snyder's casting, and this was from the first question, Amy Adams. Something about Amy Adams annoys the shit out of me. She's just so fucking, and maybe she's just annoying in that, but she was annoying in Villanueva's Arrival too. She's just maybe it's just Lois. It's not just Lois Lane, because Lois Lane is kind of an asshole. She's always kind of an asshole, unless she's Terry Hatcher, in which case we're not gonna. Yeah, but Yeah, something about Amy Adams I could live without. But yeah, the 3 movies all on the same level, 1, 2, 3. I won't put them in any particular order. I consider them to be all part of, the same thing.
It's a complete story. I mean, it is a complete story if you watch all of them. It really is.
It's funny that we're 2 hours and 5 minutes and a few seconds into this, and the first time anybody even mentioned Amy Adams, because her turn as Lois Lane was that forgettable. It's like
it was.
We talked about all these things, and the one person we haven't brought up is really one of the characters that is most important to a Superman story is Lois Lane. Yeah. But I mean, let's face it, she's no Margot Kidder. I mean, she wasn't supposed to be playing the Margot Kidder version. She wasn't playing a continuation of that. But it's
Frank, do you want to borrow my glasses too? I mean, you can put those on top of it.
Right.
Yeah, who are you?
The Margot Kidder version is kind of like she was a go-getter. She was a typical, kind of journalist person who was like, I want the story. Whereas Amy Adams she didn't carry that same. She didn't have the same chutzpah. She didn't have the same energy that we got from what made Margot Kidder kind of an enjoyable Lois Lane to me. Now maybe that's a little bit of nostalgia talking because I grew up on.
These are rose-colored glasses, my friend. This is the same Lois Lane that shot Christopher Reeve just to prove that he was fucking Superman in the second movie,
and then flung herself out of a window to also prove that as well.
Yeah.
To say
she's a fucking psychopath. She's a fucking psychopath.
But like she's a go-getter. She's a go-getter.
Who gives up being Superman to sleep with Margot Kidder?
Well,
thank you.
Back in 1977.
Margot Kidder.
I made that same argument whenever we reviewed Superman 2. One pussy or all of them? He could have all of them, and he gave it up for one.
He could fly to Playboy Mansion and just fucking, have himself a ball. But Margot Kidder, that's your 1 in a billion. Okay.
She wasn't even that hot. He gave up God powers for an ugly chick. That's a schlock move.
Crazy.
That's
Raquel
Bush League.
Yeah, rookie move, man. Rookie move.
Yeah, for me, my top 3. I mean, I didn't love it at first, but over the years, it's grown on me a lot. I think Man of Steel was a solid movie. I mean, I remember leaving the movie theater when I first.
The best Superman movie ever made.
I remember leaving the theater when I first came out feeling kind of underwhelmed, but as I've watched it, several times since then, I'm just like, this was a great starting point, despite the fact that the powers that be at DC and Warner Brothers didn't want to like make that a real start. What did they say? Somebody asked them when Man of Steel came out, is this going to be the start of your own shared universe? They're like, well, let's see what Superman does, what Man of Steel does. I'm like, it could be 2.5 hours of Superman sitting on the shitter reading the Daily Planet. It's going to make $1 billion. I mean, come on, it's Superman. If you're going to commit to it, commit to it. I mean, that's one of the things. One of the best moves Marvel made is the end of the first Iron Man. Nick Fury shows up. They committed to at least doing the Avengers at that point. I mean, anything past that was still kind of up in the air. But they were like, at this point, we're committed to getting through the Avengers. And if that's where we stop, fine. But we have ideas. They didn't even want to do that. I mean, with the exception of a couple little Easter eggs, I think in Man of Steel, I think you see like a reference to Wayne Enterprises or something like that. You don't really see. You don't really see any real evidence of like a larger universe, and they should have committed to that from the jump, and maybe had a post-credit scene or something that says, yes, there's a larger universe, there's a Nick Fury, there's an Amanda Waller person out there in this universe too, and they just didn't.
Martian Manhunter was there the whole time. Yeah. They just hadn't cast him yet. Just saying, he was there the whole time. He was the general.
He wasn't in the movie though. I mean, they didn't commit to it. But also, I mean, the first Wonder Woman, I thought was not only did it really stick with the darker tone, but it was a great period piece. I mean, because
World War I,
it's very rare that we get a movie centered around World War I anymore because we're literally 100 and something years, 104 years past it now. So. I mean, so it's not as fresh in the consciousness as maybe World War II or some of the more recent wars are, but I mean, that was a great setting. It was a great movie. To me, it cemented Gal Gadot as a character. I was on the fence about her a little bit. I liked her, but I was like, I need to see her do it. After seeing that movie, I was on board with Gal Gadot. I thought she handled herself very well in that movie. I thought she played a great Wonder Woman. I couldn't pick a lot of stuff out of that movie that I didn't like. I loved the final scene where her fighting David Thewlis' character. I love that movie. Yeah, I love that movie from start to finish. I thought it was really good. And then obviously Zack Snyder's Justice League. I mean, that comes in at third to me. But I mean, it was a much better version of what it was much closer to, I think, the original Zack Snyder version than what we got from the original theatrical cut, which was just an uneven mess. I mean, I tried watching the theatrical cut recently. I got about halfway through it and I was like, I just don't want to watch this movie. But maybe I wasn't in the mindset to watch a movie, but I was watching it and I'm like, I'm not feeling this movie. I just don't, because it's such a jumbled mess. It didn't seem right to me. I do want to give a shout out though. Shazam was a lot of fun.
I have a copy.
That was the one movie that I was like, I don't see how this movie is really going to work unless you just load it with cameos and make it all about whatever else is going on in the DCEU. But that was a lot of fun. I thought that was a fun movie. The second movie was a very much a disappointment, but the first movie was a lot of fun. And I'm not going to lie, Black Adam, while not a fantastic movie, I still think it was fun to watch. I mean, it was never going to be enough to save the DCEU at that point. But I mean, it was fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it.
The best thing,
Flash as well.
The best thing about Black Adam was a Pierce Bronson Dr. Fate. He should have been that. Yeah. He was. Why did he sacrifice himself for a immortal Black Adam? I don't why that makes no sense. I don't know. That still blows my mind a little bit. But Pierce Bronson as Dr. Fate was an incredible casting. I would watch a whole series about him playing that role again. But it's too late.
Frank. One of the things too, and we
just died to live another day
for a second. Yeah.
Sorry, James Bond
was Michael Shannon as Zod. He was just a fantastic villain, man.
I will find him.
Yeah. He was
powerful character.
Crazy, man. And those fight scenes, those action scenes, man, that was some smash mouth Superman.
Yeah. It's the first Superman movie where he actually fights. He never threw a punch in any other movie besides that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it when we did Superman 2 a month or so ago. And I'll ask you real quick, Werewolf, who do you think was a better Zod? Was it Terrence Stamp, who, again, maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia talking, but I love Terrence Stamp. He's so great and everything. Or was Michael Shannon the better Zod? What do you think?
Michael Shannon. I mean, it's not even that well written a character from Donner's movie. I mean, this is just a finer script. And you've got a bigger range coming from Shannon. I mean, Terrence Stamp. I like Terrence Stamp. Got nothing against the man. He's a fine actor. But it was a performance for the time. I wouldn't consider it necessarily a timeless performance. I just but like I said, by that time you look back at it now, they have that comedic tone to it that is not my direction for things. For some people it is their direction, and they prefer those action comedies, and that's their bread and butter. For me, no, you give that dark gritty kind of thing, and he just looks like he wants Michael Shannon just looks like he wants to break your neck at any given second. And his the woman, who was the woman in the Kryptonian?
Feora.
Oh, man, yeah, she was great too. And these great
her fight with the Colonel, a good death is its own reward or whatever.
Yeah,
where they're having that dude's having a knife fight with a Kryptonian. Like, are you stupid? You are not going to win this thing. Like, that was crazy. Yeah.
Fishburne is Perry White.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Perry White. Yeah, man. I mean, I liked it. Yeah. I liked all of it. And a lot of people complained about, Jonathan Kent, Kevin Costner.
Died in the tornado.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. He sacrificed for his son. What parent? I'm not a parent. What parent doesn't do that? So.
Yeah, totally. But but like I said, and I even liked Blue Beetle. I thought it was fun. I mean, it wasn't going to fit in. It was never going to fit in the MCU. I'm interested to see how they fit that into, because Gunn and Safran have said that Blue Beetle is going to have a part in the DCU moving forward. I don't know what that means yet because they've not announced anything. But I mean, who knows? I don't know. But I mean, you guys saw Jason Momoa several months ago now had that Instagram thing where he came out of a meeting with Gunn and Saffron, very, very happy about whatever was talked about that meeting. We do not, as of yet, have that information as to what he was so happy about. But I mean, Tex, do you think that means that either he's going to continue as Aquaman, or that he may be stepping into a different role in the DCU moving forward?
I think he has to be Lobo at this point. The fans have crowed for it for so long, and he wants it so bad. It's kind of like how the fans willed the Snyder Cut to come out. If we don't see Jason Momoa as Lobo, people are going to be pissed. I don't want to see him as Aquaman anymore. I saw him end it in Aquaman 2. They wrapped up all the storylines. That's done. I don't want any hangovers from the DCEU going forward. Because if we can have Momoa Aquaman, how come we can't have Cavill Superman or an Affleck Batman? I would forever ask those questions. So we need a hard reboot, give us Lobo, and move forward. Pretty simple.
Tex, can I ask you something? If you're feeling that way about it, though, does that disqualify him from the vague possibility, however, wispy or in the ether, of a restoration of the Snyderverse?
No, because obviously, if they're doing a Snyderverse thing, that's not going to be a Warner Brothers done thing. That's going to be done with a Netflix or somebody else. I think the chances of the Snyderverse continuing are less than zero. I'll be real honest with you. Now, if it were to happen, if they were to announce tonight, hey, Snyderverse on Netflix, I'm going to go get a loan and throw some more money at it just to make sure it happens. But I'm not worried about it because I don't think that there's a chance in hell that it's going to happen, unfortunately. Okay. So I don't have to worry too much about
that. Okay.
I don't know. Jay, what do you think? What do you think we're going to see Jason Momoa as moving forward in the DCU?
I still think it's Lobo, because I think from the beginning he's even said that. He was like, I mean, hello, look at me. He's like, I'd be perfect for it.
Yeah.
He's like the first time I came in there and I was like, really? I'm gonna be Aquaman? Okay. So
they should have cut his hand off and given him the hook hand that Aquaman had in the 90s. That was a missed opportunity. But
yeah. No, I think it's finally going to come full circle for him that he's going to play the character he wanted to play in the first place. So I think it could be a lot of fun. He said it was a character that he was into that he said could be a lot of fun to play. So, I mean, and I see it. So I think we're going to finally bring that to light, is give Jason Momoa a Lobo.
Yeah, Werewolf, how about you? I mean, are you of the mind as everybody else that he's probably going to end up playing Lobo moving forward?
No, I don't trust James Gunn as far as I can throw him. I think James Gunn.
I agree with that too.
I think James Gunn makes a lot of empty promises. I think he is about James Gunn, and it's not about what the fans want necessarily. I mean, you can't cater to the fans like a sycophant, but I mean, basically, it's about what James Gunn thinks that you need, and that's what he's going to give you. So he may say one thing. I think he also told what was the other one? I think he made a lot of promises to David Ayer at the time when he first took over that the Ayer cut was eventually going to be released, and then he flipped on that. He flips on a lot of things that he says. So I don't trust anything that he says unless they've got it on paperwork. I don't see him bringing anybody back from the Snyder casting, because I think he's too insecure for it. It's going to remind people of things that he doesn't want to remind them of. And I actually think I don't know if it's considered a hot take. I think his Superman movie is going to flop because there's just too much division already. And I think after one, maybe two flops, he's going to be out of there at DC. And I think that is probably where the Snyderverse is. If Snyder's not going to come back to take over DC, but I think there's about a 50-50 shot that after those movies flop, they're going to get the licensing rights because they're hundreds of millions of dollars in the hole. Warner Brothers is, and yeah, or is it billions? There are several.
It's billions. It's billions
of dollars in the hole. So I think once those films flop, one, it may be just Superman, maybe enough to get him out. Especially after all the buildup and the strike and the time, spent waiting for this thing to happen, which I'm sure is going to be a huge budget. Probably $500 million, probably with marketing and everything.
From what I've read, it's around like 325 or so. That's about
$500 million with marketing. So it's going to have to easily make $1 billion to even, for them to consider keeping him on, which isn't going to happen because I think also there's a bit of burnout in comic book movies in general. And so I think no Jason Momoa in the DCU. I think James Gunn leaves after 2 movies max, and we eventually get the restoration of the Snyderverse. Just in time for Darkseid.
It should be noted
you're more optimistic than I am.
Gunn only signed like a 2 or 3 year deal to work with Safran to run the DCU. So he's barely going to get 1 or 2 of the movies that he announced on that big Twitter thing that he had a while back. He's barely going to get 2. He's barely going to get 2 of those in theaters before his contract is up. So, and
that's assuming there's no delays or anything. I mean, if they get put off for 6 months, he may not get anything out.
But now that's not saying that he can't sign an extension or that maybe him and Warner Brothers sit down and we like the direction you're going. We're gonna give him 2 years or whatever. That's not saying he won't re-up, but I mean that's kind of awfully close. That is, I think that's Warner Brothers saying this has not worked out for us so far. We need to take baby steps. So we're gonna take a baby step with your contract as opposed to signing you for 25 years and then being committed to you for whatever the hell crap you give us. I personally think that what they told Jason Momoa had nothing necessarily to do with the character he was going to play moving forward. I think they probably told him that the DCEU is going to revolve around you. And that whether he's playing Lobo or Aquaman or Superman or fucking whoever or the janitor down the fucking street. I think they looked at him and just said, "Hey, you're going to be the heart of the DC universe moving forward. You're going to be our guy. You're going to be our you're going to be the one who leads this team, whatever it's going to be." And I don't necessarily know if that's a good idea or not because I mean it's got to be the Superman or Batman that has to be at the front, and I don't think Jason Momoa is going to play one of those characters. So I think that's why he left there so happy is that they said, we want you to be the face of the DCU moving forward, and whether that's going to be Lobo or whatever is less relevant than the fact that he's just going to be the face of the franchise from now on. That's my guess.
Lobo is like a D-level villain. He's like the Joker. I mean, he's like a saber. He's like the MCU equivalent of Sabretooth.
Lobo, for the ones that don't realize, he's a space traveling bounty hunter with powers on the level of Superman, basically. Like he can go one-on-one with Superman. He rides like this space Harley, and he's dressed like a '90s biker with the leather and the studs and skulls and stuff.
He looks like a rejected
He's a fun Kiss. Very much so. He's very inspired by Kiss. He's got like blue skin with it's almost like face tattoos like on around his eyes and mouth. He looks cool. Jason Momoa is perfectly casted for it. Lobo's a very 90s character. He came out, he got real popular at the same time Wolverine did in the comic books and stuff. So if you don't know who he is, go look at the Superman, the animated series. There was a lot of Lobo in that if you need a refresher course to learn who he is. So go check that out.
But thanks to all of you who voted in the poll on YouTube. It looks like 20% of you, I asked, what did you think of the DCEU or the Snyderverse? 20% of you said great. 20% of you said pretty good. 50% of you said okay, but it was hit or miss. And 10% of you said it was straight shit. I don't think it was straight shit. I think there was some good spots.
I got a feeling that's probably Casey's contribution. That's where he likes to play.
Yeah, that's where
he likes trying to wreck that curve.
I should have just put Amber Heard's face. Straight Amber Heard.
Should just put Amber in the poop.
Is that number 4? Is that 4 references to Amber Heard tonight? 4 or 5 in there somewhere.
Somewhere. It's way less. It's way less than I thought we were going to have. So whatever.
I tried to be good.
Yeah, Jeremy, you did restrain yourself. I'm actually very impressed.
I said I didn't come out here wearing the pirate hat. It's okay.
But that's what we're going to go.
Jeremy did a shitty job of referencing Amber Heard. There's number 6. We got to 6. All right, you happy?
Hey, look, and he said he was threatening to put my face on Jason Momoa's body. I mean, I can only wish. You're just doing me a favor. Just stroking my ego. If you were going to do that.
Yeah, but you got to have a baby with Amber Heard. So that's the rule. That's the trade-off. But that's a good place to start wrapping things up. I don't know what else there is to say about the Snyderverse. Maybe there's a lot more to say. We'll have to do a part 2 to this thing, but we'll see how things. I'm sure we're going to start comparing the Snyderverse to the upcoming DCEU that we're going to get over the next few years. So there will be further comparisons made once we actually have something to compare it to. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up on that note. Thanks to my amazing co-host for being so awesome. Tex, where can the folks at home find you, my friend?
Here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Work permit, allowing me to be here. But my recommendation for this week, I've seen it twice in theaters, Late Night with the Devil. I can't praise this film enough. Werewolf and I were just talking about it before we started the show. This is a straight up 70s horror film. This is a refreshing horror film. I haven't seen something like this in years. This might be the best horror film I've seen in 5 years. I love this movie. Go support it. It's in theaters now, and go check it out.
And my hetero life mate, Jeremy, where can the folks at home find you, my friend?
Same thing Tex said. Tuesday and Thursdays, same bat time, same bat channel. So, and yeah, like I always say, my name's right there. You figure it out. It's on everything.
There you go.
Pretty much. So, I don't make shit. I'm a terrible content creator.
Nah, he's not so bad. You just have to click go live on your PlayStation while you're playing Fortnite. Then you'll be a better content creator.
I don't look. I just looked at my stats because I'm like, we haven't won a game in a long fucking time. I'm about 90 games played and I've won 4 total fucking games, and that's with squads. They were all squad wins. I'm like, so did I really win or did my whole fucking team win for me? So that's probably what happened. I'm just saying. I'm like, it's not even me at this point. It's really not. This shit's getting ridiculous.
That's why we suck at Fortnite as a standard on this channel, by God.
That's why we name it that.
If that's the bar, I mean, I got content for days.
He stalks the New Jersey night by the full moon. He is the American Werewolf, New Jersey. What do you got going on your channel, my friend? What do you got coming up?
What's happening, man? Well, I got, let's see. I just put out a video, put up a couple of videos. The new Immaculate Review, the Sydney Sweeney nunsploitation flick. And then, like Tex was saying, put up a review for Late Night with the Devil. And it's the excellence that we definitely need in horror these days. Got up a review on the new Roadhouse film, which was Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor. And then yesterday got up a review on the new Godzilla Kong. And that'll be live streaming Thursday nights, talking about a pretty good ghost story with Kristen Stewart called Personal Shopper. So lots going on the channel. We're always around. Give us a look up, American Werewolf.
Link to his channel is in the description of all the videos. Make sure you go check him out. Go check out a lot of the great movie YouTubers that are kind of like in this community. Us, Night Watch Zone, all these guys. There's a couple of them down in the description below. You'll find us back here on Thursday. We're going to be going over Tombstone. I don't have a graphic for it, but Tombstone, the 1993 Rambo Eyes version of the shootout at the OK Corral. Still a very fun movie to watch. One of the better action westerns that has come out like ever. We'll be talking about that. Also, we've got the Fallout coming up. We still have to figure out how we're going to approach that. But I mean, I'm eagerly awaiting that show. I mean, I wasn't a big player of the game. I played it here and there, but we've got the Fallout reviews coming up. Civil War, this really crazy movie that they've been advertising. We're going to be going over that. Our Godzilla versus Kong review will be coming up at some point. I have to move the schedule around because I don't want to wait till the end of the month to do it, but we'll be doing that one soon as well. I just got a chance to see it over the weekend, or actually last night I went to go see it. The fight scenes alone to me were worth the price of admission. Just two giant monsters going at it like that. It's always fun to watch. But yeah, there was a pretty good movie to watch. We'll break that one down at some point here pretty soon as well. Thanks to my amazing co-host for being amazing because you guys kick ass. Thanks to American Werewolf in New Jersey for coming to hang out with us tonight. It's always great to have you around. We look forward to having you back whenever you're free, and we will see you guys next time. Until then, go watch the Snyder Cut in black and white. It's way better. Looks classy as shit. You guys will like it. Adios.
Make the Batfleck movie.
We're coming back on Thursday. We're coming and we're bringing hell with us.
There wasn't enough boobs and murder in this whole franchise for you, Tex. I'm surprised you liked it at all.
Hey, you know what?
There wasn't enough Amber
I
Heard
can
involved.
forgive the lack of nudity and sex for Batfleck. He's worth the price of admission. So it's fine.
Hey man, we had Gal Gadot. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with that?
I was gonna say,
Right.
Gal